count the countdown because the countdown was already fucked up. But here we are. Take a sip
We
of
are
my
in.
drink. We are in. And welcome back to Nerd Shit in the Dark, the shittiest podcast on the internet. And I am your host, Chase the Chaz Skripek. And joining me on the warm bidet today is Caton the Weasel Wiesner. Again on the show for his third or fourth time.
Actually, I don't know. Third, I think. I think it's third.
Star Wars special. No, we did a Star Wars special. Then you and I did one about Ahsoka last year.
Oh, and then we did the filler.
We did one a couple months ago now.
Yeah, it was the filler. So yeah, this is 4. I'm back for my 4th time talking about some nerdy shit. So I'm down for it.
Which is good. It's good to have you for this one because one of the my like main topic for tonight. I'm glad that we're talking about it together.
Okay.
Not that Braden couldn't talk about it with me the same, but you'll understand when we get there.
Okay. Yeah, fair. I'm going into this blind. I don't know. I didn't even ask you if there's anything you need me to prepare for it. I'm just here to be a co-host and listen to the talk.
Yeah.
Provide my commentary where I can.
Now, if you have something though, if you have some new nerd shit, I usually let the guests start.
So. Oh, I definitely figured I could talk about some new nerd shit. Yeah. I actually come up with 3 different things I could potentially bring to this conversation. Ooh. So you can cut me off if I go long-winded, but I picked 3 different things that have been recently I've been doing or experienced or been involved in that I figured I could bring in. They're all generally genre related. So if you want, I can just hop right into one of them and we can go from there.
Waste no time. I think sometimes we talk about other things for too long, maybe. So
that's fair. That's true. We do get into the introductions. Yeah. So the first one, I'm going to talk about something that I watched recently, and I don't know. Again, stop me if you maybe have already talked about this. I just finished Shogun off on FX.
Oh, you know what, dude? I don't think we did get a chance to talk about Shogun on this yet.
Yeah. So it was Monday I had off, and I think I had like 4 episodes left. I've been putting them off, and finally I sat down and watched all of them, finished out the entire end of the show, and to no surprise, had a great time. That was an incredible TV show. The ending I thought was both really good and also kind of like it was one of those shows that ended where I'm just like, I want to know more. I want to know what's going on now. Like, how does this go from here? Because they set it up, at the end with the final kind of reveal of how everything went down, and it was all part of the plan to begin with. And he orchestrated almost all of the deaths and the intrigue and the mystique to turn everybody against him. And just so good, because then it's like, okay, where do they go from here? Where does Anjin's son go, raising a fleet for the new, quote unquote Shogun? And
so you want to see more?
I would. I think it would be interesting. I completely understand that they probably won't, though. Well, I know that these are all backed by books in some way.
It did get picked up for a second season, but there is no book. Like the book is the first season is the only book. So I heard the writers were taking right, and that's where I'm at. Like I heard they were making a second season, and I liked the first season so much that I was just like, I don't need more. But it draws from history, so I guess the writers were talking about how they're using like real life events to kind of like make a season 2. But I'm still like, man, you adapted something that we've seen what happens when you go off the adapt.
So what's his name? It's like Bradley Caravel or something close to that. Ended up writing the book, and he kind of whitewashed certain aspects of it by inserting like Blackthorn into the story, because that was sort of the true Japan history, where it was like you had the leader's son needing to be raised, so the 5 kind of regents said that they would rule in his stead, and all that good stuff happened. So I know that it's like partially based in history, partially based in fiction, but I didn't know about the second season, and
they said they were going to start working on it a couple months back, and I was just like, like, can't we just let things be perfect? and just leave it at that.
If you would have told me that like what I witnessed was say the first half of a book, and then they were like, oh well, the second season's the second half of the book, I'd been jazzed. But
sure.
no, not the opposite of this. Now I'm not interested in watching somebody come up with a story as intriguing as that. Though I have to compliment the actors because every person in that show so good. I don't know what the main character, the main like Shogun guy is, but my God, like he deserves all the awards and nominations that he ended up getting for that show last year or what have you. And
it like broke records with the Emmys that it won this year. I haven't watched. I watched it when it came out, so I watched it weekly as it was coming out. So I remember it, but I'm not as fresh as I would have been when it first came out. But
I had such a good time. There were definitely moments, even like Leah would walk down the stairs and I'd be in the middle of a scene and she'd be like, "Hey," and I'd be like, "Hold on, wait." Hold on, we're in the middle of something really good here. Like, and Mariko is like trying to leave and they're not letting her leave and she's all doing it for a purpose. And I was just like,
such a tense
oh
scene.
My God.
Those last 3 episodes are fucking, every episode's amazing, but those last 3 are just like, every time one ended, I'd be like, God, I can't wait till next week to watch this next episode. And I mean, it's definitely the best way to do it.
It works out in my favor since that is normally how I end up watching things anymore because I'm not good at sticking to routines. So if it's not all at once, I'm not going to stick with it. So yeah, that was the first thing I wanted to talk about because that was super fresh on my mind. And damn, if it was just so good. Like it was absolutely incredible.
It's one of those ones that came out pretty early last year that I kind of forget about it by the end of the year. But of the shows I watched last year, it's definitely the best one. And I watched a lot of good shows, but that one was so like.
And I'm always
so good.
I'm always so nervous for cable TV shows sometimes because like there's
it's
so
an
many
FX
things.
Show.
Right, and it's an FX show, and it kind of blew my mind that was the case because. I mean, you've got his right hand man doing seppuku because, A, it's part of the plan, but B, also because he's putting on the show that he needs to put on. And it's just like, it was graphic. Like, I'm watching it. I'm just like,
talk about a wingman.
This was, damn, dude. Like, I respect you, man, but I don't know. If you just start going off the rails, I'm just walking away. I'm not like, I don't got that sort of commitment. But yeah.
You're not Japanese enough.
True. I don't have the loyalty in my DNA. Honor in my DNA. But yeah, that was incredible. I highly recommend that to anybody who hasn't had the opportunity to watch that. I think it's on Hulu because I think that's who FX partners with now.
Hulu, Disney Plus, through
it's on Disney. Okay.
They're like connected now.
I surf the high seas most of my life anymore. So
what's the main guy? John Smith?
Thorne.
Blackthorn. Love that character. Love that actor. I loved it. He's so funny. You know what I mean? And serious, but like he's this comedic character. Not that he's a comedic character, but he's this comedic little bit. Not even trying to be funny in a very serious show.
Yeah, there's perspective like where he's out of his element. He's super disoriented and he's trying to keep up all the time. But there was something natural about the actor where it almost felt like even while acting in scenes, it's almost like the director only told him half of the plot. And like he was finding it out as it was happening, and
everybody was just speaking Japanese to him, and he was just
I would believe that if you told me that the actor was like only privy to half of the script, I would believe that based on his acting because like that's how it felt when he'd like make facial expressions where always look exasperated. I'm like, I think he might actually be exasperated. I don't know, honestly. He might be struggling right now, but yeah, that was a good one. Highly recommend that. I've been telling everybody that I've talked to. I'm just like, have you guys watched it? Like,
if you missed it, it's only 8 episodes?
10. I think it's a
10
full
episodes? 10.
Okay. Yeah, it's a full 10. Each is an hour, and they're dense, right? Because I know a lot of people, not a lot of people. I've had certain conversations with people who are like, I have a hard time watching a full series with subtitles. And I respect it. Like, it's off-putting to certain people. But damn, if you power through.
So, and you can watch it dubbed. I think they have an option to watch like the Japanese people. It's confusing because they're speaking English and a guy who's just like no idea what you're talking about. But
yeah,
I would say watch it with the subtitles.
Don't do that.
I mean, it's one of those episodes. It has a lot of great action scenes, but most of what makes the show good isn't even its action. One of my favorite scenes of the whole series is it's like an episode or two after John has sex with what's her name?
Medico.
And her husband shows up alive and they have to have like dinner together. That was both funny and very like tense at the same time.
That also, I don't know if I've ever told you about my curse of airplanes. I think I might have told Leah my curse of airplanes, but it seems like every time I pick a TV show that if I'm going to watch it on an airplane, there's 100% going to be an awkward sex scene that I have to I'm like looking around to everybody behind me. And I just happened to pick like that episode or the episode before that when they're like giving a bath or something. And I'm like, it's an FX show. Gonna be fine.
Yeah. Nope.
Guess not. There's just a boob there. And I was like, oh, well, I hope the people in the plane behind me don't mind this. So
basic cable gets boobs now.
Last time that happened, I was watching an episode of Game of Thrones back in like college, and I didn't know there's just Daenerys Targaryen taking a bath, and I'm in the middle of an airplane. I'm like, all right, let's close the laptop on that one. I'm not gonna watch that on an
Sorry,
airplane.
Kids. Sorry.
Yep.
But also, kids, you're welcome because
hey, there you go.
You don't get to see somebody that nice all the time.
All right, so that was the first thing I wanted to bring up.
Sure.
Highly recommend it. Yeah. The next thing that I wanted to bring up, something that I read recently, is I have moved pretty hard into Junji Ito's horror manga. Now, I don't know if you know who Junji Ito is. He is kind of that.
He wrote Uzumaki, didn't he?
He wrote Uzumaki. He's wrote Tomi. He's wrote Giru. He's wrote a couple other ones that are pretty big. Frankenstein.
He wrote to you?
He wrote to me. He wrote to me directly. He wrote me a letter. It was very kind.
You're a good fan.
Yeah. No, but apparently they turned these things into Adult Swim cartoons. They animated his stuff recently, and it's crisp. It's good looking. I was up one Saturday a couple of weeks ago, and I saw that they were turning his stuff into anime again. I think they had tried in the past. I don't know. It didn't go well. Now the world's a lot more understanding of some of that stuff, so it's got a better audience. And I was like, I should give this a go. And I don't think, much like Shogun, I'd sit here and recommend it to a lot of people. Don't think I would. It's just one of that weird things where it's kind of like, I don't know who he wrote it for or who he wrote it to scare. Yeah. It's mostly kind of silly in my opinion. It's weird.
This one is, which one is it again? Not which series?
Well, I read 3 of them.
So you're just reading him in general.
I'm reading him as an author. So I've read Uzumaki, I've read Tomi, and I've read Giru. Uzumaki, basic premise is that it's even hard to say with a serious face, but like
say it with a silly one then.
Spirals in this village, literally like twirlies, swirls. Think of a snail shell.
Uzumaki.
They start to like infest the psyche of people, and it starts with like this student and his girlfriend. The student comes back from a neighboring city talking about how much he hates coming home because this place is just like a dreaded city, and don't you feel it in the air? It's really weird. And then his dad becomes obsessed with spirals, so he starts commissioning local potters and artists to make spirally pottery for him. And then it's like he starts to be able to morph his body into spirals, and he like sticks his tongue out to scare this neighborhood girl and like turns his tongue into a spiral, and it's extra long, and it just like it goes off the rails into like body kind of, I know it's often described as like that Lovecraftian horror where it's like it's kind of out there in terms of existential dread and unreality. It's weird. I wanted to bring it up just to know if you've ever had the opportunity to go in and like see the absurdity of this stuff, because it's off the track, man. It I don't know.
Japanese as fuck.
Yeah, but it's like usually I give a lot of benefit of the doubt at the time of this stuff is written. It's like, oh, that was the 70s and 80s. People had a weird perspective before. This is like late 90s, early 2000s. And I don't know, if you like read some of this stuff and you're like, oh, it's really terrifying. I'm like, really? Is it scaring you?
I've read about some of these. Like I've read about Uzumaki. I've read about the author. I know the anime for Uzumaki just came out like last year.
Yeah.
I heard it didn't really review super well, so I just passed on watching it. So I've never actually, like, I know of it, but I've seen none of it.
I would love to talk to somebody who maybe has a solid appreciation for him and somebody can defend him well, because when I read it, it's like, yeah, I think I get the ethereal fear that comes with some of those, like when you read like Call of Cthulhu or Escape from the Mountain of Madness from Lovecraft, it's like, oh, the fear is something that you can't comprehend. Mm-hmm. And I get that when I'm reading his stuff and his short stories, but I'm reading this and I'm just like, maybe it's that it's like the images are kind of weird, and I know you're going for terror, but all I see is kind of like goofy artistry. But
it's a manga, correct? It's not like a book, it's a manga.
Yeah, for sure. They were originally released in like serials, and they were like hit different manga publications. I actually ended up purchasing Tomy because I was at Barnes and Noble and I saw this really nice like kind of throwback graphic novel. It's a big thick one of all the chapters, and it's kind of like Tomy is just like a cursed girl who appears in many short stories, and she's somewhat of a, I don't want to say a demon, but like a specter, and she just haunts these people. And like if you take her hair and you cut it off because you're obsessed with her beauty, then when you take her hair home, it will start to sprout a head, and it's her head, and she starts to clone and bud, and then she takes your life over. And it's like, okay, like again, I get it, but at the same time, like it's not, I guess I'm not the person it was written for.
Yeah, you know what? We're going to talk about this one a lot because I actually have a lot of questions when it comes to some of this stuff. One of them being, one, do you think it doesn't... Well, actually, first and foremost, do you like them? Did you have a good time reading them? Do you feel like it was good? Is there one you like better than the others?
Definitely Uzumaki was the most cohesive story, in my opinion. And cohesive is a light term. It's the most story that connects and tells a very interesting thread.
You read Chainsaw Man, right?
Yeah, I did. And
do you say it gets kind of off the reels like that? Sometimes?
I think part of my issue with Chainsaw Man at this point is I'm not entirely sure what the vision for Chainsaw Man is anymore. Because like,
are you reading it like currently, like the current? Yeah, I don't know what the fuck's been going on since the time shift. But
I would say that like literally after the end of the first like major arc, and I know there's been minor arcs throughout everything, but like pretty much up to the end of the Makima stuff.
Right.
I have not understood the perspective of this show anymore. Like, I don't get it. I honestly feel like he's kind of rushing. I kind of feel like he's rushing because the art style is sloppy, the text is weird, and the story is loose. And I know a lot of like big brain people out there want to say it's all the vision, but like, I don't. So
it's fine. Not to cut off into Chainsaw Man, but like this is what I'm feeling about you describing Uzumaki is like how I feel about modern right now Chainsaw Man.
No, it's more cohesive than that. It's not the issue of like the fact that I don't know where it's going. It's just that I don't know who the horror elements are for. Like, I don't, there's
one of my next questions, actually.
There's these chapters that are further on in Uzumaki, and I'm not going to have any issue spoiling this. Nobody's really going to care. It's been out for a million years. But there's a chapter further on where, like, the main character's father, who is the potter of the town, starts to become susceptible to these spirals, and he's making clay, he's making pots, and he's putting them in his kiln, and he refuses to let his family go into the kiln room, but he's in there, and he's like staring into the kiln, and he's like going crazy, and everything that comes out is this very strange kind of alien Promethean style pottery that comes out. And he's like, this is the most beautiful thing on the planet, and everybody's like, that's fucked up, Dad. Like, what is wrong with that? Like, it's horrible. And he's like, you guys don't appreciate true art. Well, then you come to find out that like this lake in the middle of the town, every time somebody dies of a spiral, this lake absorbs the cremated ashes, and like he's making pottery out of the clay from the bottom of this lake. So it ends up like creating this, well, more spirals in itself, that he's like taking the ashes of the bodies and turning into clay, and then they morph in the kiln. And the whole episode ends where the kiln explodes and causes a huge fire. And then it just kind of ends. And you're like, okay, so
that's
like...
the end of the series or the end of the chapter?
No, just the chapter. That's about...
Thank God.
That's about, I'd say about 48% of the way through the story. And it goes on further to like realize that this town's been cursed by spirals forever, and there's these strange structures that have always been there and ingrained in the city, and they can't get torn down. And when you start to combine them all together, lo and behold, it creates a spiral that ends in the middle of this lake. And then it's so hard to describe because it's just so out there.
Yeah.
And I would never encourage anybody to spend the time reading it. But did I enjoy it? I guess so, because like,
yeah. But you wouldn't tell anybody to do it.
Yeah, it's like I enjoyed it. But I don't know. It was weird. But who's it written for? I don't know.
Do you think that's more of like a cultural thing where like it's so popular because it's a Japanese thing, and in Japan they understand maybe to them this is scary shit? Or did you get recommended this by Americans? Like how did you find out about, who told you this was good? I mean, I know people think it's good. I've heard people think it's good.
I think that I don't know the first time I've heard of him. I mean, I think I've heard his name. Actually, I take that back. A while back on Reddit, a long, long time ago, and I'd say back when I was in college, so almost 10 odd years now, there was this web comic that was going around called The Faults in Enigma, or the Cracks in Enigma Fault, or something like that. And what I learned recently was that it was a short story written by Ito, and it was just a couple of pages long. And the concept is like, there's this huge fissure earthquake in Japan, and this huge mountainside starts to pop open these cracks that are very human looking. And everybody in the local area is drawn to these cracks on the news. So like all these hikers are going up to this huge mountainside where all these cracks are, and people start getting allured by some unseen force into the cracks because they say that they look like them. And the whole story is like this one hiker goes up and he's like trying to pull back this girl because this girl's like, this is mine. This is my spot. This is my crack. And he's like, no, it's not. Knock it off. Well, the story, it's short. It's I'd probably say it's under 50 pages long. And that's the end of the story. Oh. And the concept ends where it's like, they go to the other side of the mountain and they see the cracks wildly deformed. And when they like shine a light in there, they realize that all the people who felt this weird calling on the other side, where they were normal human-like cracks, had like shifted their way through and started to like morph in shape. And what they're seeing on the other side is like this monstrous kind of tentacle being, reminiscent of almost like a Dead Space alien type thing. And it's just like, that's the end of it. Like that, the end of the story is them like shining a light in and being like, sir, there's something coming. And like, all you see is this final like cell in the manga page of just like this monster going, Bruh! And it's just like,
it's like Cloverfield.
Yeah. It's just like, okay. And you're kind of sitting there, you're like, okay, yeah, that's a weird concept, but like, not really that scary. Like, it's just weird. Like, so I don't know.
And you read that when you were in college?
Yeah, and that's when I think I found out about Junji
Did you like
Ito's,
it then, or did you also feel the same way? Like, fuck.
I think at the time I was like less worldly to be like, oh, people are writing some weird horror shit out there. And now, like, since then I've grown up and I'm like, I've seen some really scary stuff.
Yeah, I feel that way too sometimes, where like, I feel like a lot of people really enjoy things for like the artsiness of it. And I used to care about that kind of thing, and I still do respect it, but it's not enough for me anymore, where like the artsiness of something doesn't make it a better thing.
And I think that's my bottom line of what I'd say about his work as a whole. It's like, I can respect what he did. People really seem to like it if they like it. Like if it hits their niche for horror storytelling, they're all in.
Yeah.
I don't think it's for me, but I've read a couple of them. I've tried to give them a fair shake. I've read 3 of his like full graphic novels and a couple of his short stories. And I just am like, all right, yeah, interesting. And so I don't know, maybe there's somebody out there that you have in your circle or who listen to this and it'd be like, I love Junji Ito and I'd love another perspective of it. But like, to me, it's like, okay, yep, that's interesting.
I don't think I know anybody personally. My buddy Jake asked me about Uzumaki when the anime came out, but just because he wanted to watch a new anime, and
that's not the one to recommend.
Anime, so I was just like, I've heard of it. I don't know anything about it though.
Yeah, it's interesting, especially when you're really young and like you're putting together like Naruto Uzumaki, and then you're like, what's this?
I mean, that's why I'm pretty sure that's why I even know what it is. Like, it caught my eye years and years and years ago because of its title.
Yeah,
because it sounded like Naruto, because it does.
It does. Yeah.
It's his last
name.
It's like if something was called Spreepeck and you wouldn't think of me.
it's some crazy
Polish,
I don't even know
horror story.
I don't know. Yeah, so that was the other thing I wanted to talk about, just bring up. And then the final thing I just wanted to hit on kind of briefly is I don't know if you have anybody in your circles that are back into like Pokemon card collecting, but Prismic Evolution.
Pokemon cards.
Prismic Evolution came out just recently, which is the most recent expansion. Got a couple of hits on that, and it's kind of like reinvigorated my love of Pokemon card collecting. So I've actually now started a plan and have like itemized all of the cards that I've had since I was a kid, and I now have this ambition to put together a collection of the original sets I'm working on. I nerded out, got some Excel stuff together. I'm going to card shops and I'm like looking for the cards that I'm missing, so that my hope is that I can maybe put together a display, because of the like roughly 162 original cards, I'm up to about 110 of them. So I'm getting like relatively close. So I'm putting together just a collection of that. But one thing that I wanted to throw at you is of the roughly 162 versions of Pokemon cards, there were 7 Pokemon cards that had 2 versions released in the first 3 sets. So the first 3 being Base, Jungle, and Fossil. There were 7 Pokemon cards that got 2 releases.
Right.
Would you know who they are? Would you even have guesses on which cards may have had 2 Pokemon that came out?
I have some of those Jungle ones. But off the top of my fucking head, dude, if I walked into my bookshelf where my One Pieces are, that's where my Pokemon cards are in a thing. If I looked, I probably could tell you, but off the top of my head, no idea.
I thought it was interesting. So you've got the Pikachu and the Raichu. So you remember Fat Pikachu in the base set, and then you had Jungle Pikachu was smaller. The same with Raichu. There were 2 iterations of Raichu. Magneton, Magmar, they both had 2 iterations. Ghastly and Haunter had 2 iterations, and Electrode had 2 iterations. One was a huge Electrode, almost took up the whole card, and then one was a tiny Electrode that was like right in the middle of the card itself, and that was the base, and the big one was the Jungle. But I thought that was interesting while I was like going through that.
Yeah,
they were the only 7 cards that had 2 releases, 1 in base and 1 in Jungle.
Wow, huh? I guess I just didn't think. I know what you're talking about, but I didn't really think about it at the time.
Yep, because they released the original 150 between the first 3 sets being Base, Jungle, and Fossil. After that, they started doing the other stuff with like Team Rocket and Stadium, where they started doing the Gym Trainers versions like Erica's Vileplume and Blaine's Magmar. But the original 3 sets, being those 3, are what comprise of the first 150 Pokemon.
I have a Japanese what's her face's Venusaur.
Erica?
Yeah.
There you go. Nice.
I like that card. But man.
So I've been really deep into it. I've gone through and like collected. I've actually like I bought a couple boxes, like card holding boxes, because I have cards throughout all the sets. The ones that I'm focusing mainly on are these original 151 at this point. I did get a couple of packs of the new Prismic Evolutions. Not super interested in the new stuff, but it's cool to just rip open packs and hope to pull something fun.
That's how I, like, over the past, 15 years have been buying Pokemon cards every once in a while. I swear, every time Sam Atwell and I end up in a sheets together, we both are like, "Oh, you want to just buy a pack of Pokemon cards while we're here because they're here." But I regularly, a couple times a year, pick up a pack at Walmart. And
I walk, if I'm at Target and I walk in and I see like a set, there's a couple of sets that I appreciate more recently than other sets, and I'm like, I like the focus of this set, like Prismatic Evolutions, I apologize. EV based. Most of their like draw cards are EV based, all that stuff. So not my favorite Pokemon style, but at the same time, a lot of people like it. So it's cool. That's what I've been up to. I just rambled for like 30 minutes on all the stuff I wanted to talk about. So
that's a great start. It's got me really thinking about. I mean, I don't play it like crazy, but I every day, twice a day, maybe 3 times a day, do my Pokemon trading card game app and open my packs, get mad at the game, get happy at the game, So I've been that's my like current Pokemon card thing. But if you don't think it makes me want to buy more packs of Pokemon cards, I sure do. I don't think I'd ever get into it again. But for a guy that doesn't collect cards, it's fun to get like Pokemon cards every once in a while. Sometimes I make a grocery trip bet a little more fun because I end it with like, but I'll also
buy yourself an adult
Pokemon
reward.
cards.
Hell yeah,
dude.
I was watching a like a Pokemon YouTuber at one point, and I think it was right about that 2020 version where all like the values went sky high and everybody was like sitting in their homes
they were, like,
in December.
out.
Yeah, exactly. And it was funny because he was trying to like warn new collectors around the concept of like, hey, what are you actually getting into this for? Are you like hoping to go out and buy every new set and get the rarest chase card or whatever, like the, $1,500 Pikachu? Because if you're going to do that, you're probably going to be losing money and it probably isn't going to work out for you. So like,
that's not what Pokemon's about.
You should be understanding what you're trying to accomplish. He's like, here's a couple of examples I have. Like, are you collecting to keep packs for long-term to resell? Are you buying because you want to collect a certain Pokemon because you're like really obsessed with Gengar or what have you, stuff like that. And that got me thinking because like originally when I bought it, I was like I accomplished one of my childhood goals, which was buying an entire booster box of a Pokemon set. Like all 18 packs of one.
Yeah, I guess I've never had one either.
That was I bought that back in December. It was the set with Surging Sparks. It was all Pikachu based. It was really cool. But I walked in and was like, I'm going to do this because I'm an adult. And then like, as I'm opening these, I'm like, but what's my purpose of doing this?
What's my end game here?
I don't think I'll do it again. But like, just to be able to say that I was like, I bought a box of Pokemon cards. As a kid, I could open like one, maybe two, if I was lucky. And this time I was like, I got 18 because I'm a fucking adult. And it was great. I didn't really pull anything on that. I almost made my money back. I'm not going to sell them, but in theory, I almost made my money back.
Right. Which, it's not even about that. You know what I mean? It's not even about that.
No. I had a great afternoon. I bought it on a Saturday morning, and I just spent like my Saturday afternoon just like ripping packs and just like looking through all the cards and
it's kind of how I felt when I bought enough gold to open 10 packs at once on fucking the app. I was like, I'm never gonna spend money on this. And then one time I was like, it's just like $10. It'll be fine.
I think you can like, if you just like hold on and not use it for a long enough time, like I think I have enough to buy another 10 packs. And I heard that they're gonna be releasing the second expansion pretty soon.
They fucking better, dude. It gets
so
stale.
The rules for trading just came out, and the developers, everybody hated them so bad the developers had to respond.
Right. I kind of read in. I didn't do anything. I just open pack. I don't do anything else on it anymore. I just open packs, get the cards, get the fuck off.
I'm down to just a couple
for like
that
4 days.
I'm down to just a couple that are left, so I've like put them on my wish list, and I'll briefly slow through those wonder picks because if you wish list something, it like has a distinct icon on the wonder pick. So then I'll know if I need to do a wonder pick on a certain set on the opportunity. I'll get one of the cards that I still don't have to this day.
Yeah.
But besides that, it's like
better than when you get something that you really want to wonder pick.
That's a
I pulled my goal the whole game up to this point was to save enough in that point thing that I could buy like the really cool Charizard. That I think is this one, if you can see that.
Back it up. I don't know why it's not focusing, but
oh shit.
There you go. Oh wow.
Yeah.
I don't think I've even seen that Charizard.
It's like near the end. I have the gold one too. Like the best Charizard I got like way back, and all I wanted was this one now. And I've been saving my points because it's worth 1,500 I think of the points to exchange. But like 2 weeks ago, I fucking pulled that motherfucker out of a pack.
Oh shit.
It did like a cutscene. It like did a cutscene where it showed like other Pokemon around him. I was like, this is
I have a couple of the cutscene cards. I've got the Mewtwo one where he's busting out of the laboratory, which is sick. The Celebi's really cool where he's like in the forest and like there's sleeping Pikachus and Pidgeys around him.
Yes, I have the Pikachu one too now that I think about it.
Oh, it is. It's not. Oh, I'm getting him confused because the sleeping Pikachu's one, and then I did pull the Celebi from the Mew expansion, and I can't remember what that little scene is, but it's also got a little force. I love that. I thought that was such an ingenious idea.
Such a cool, and like I pull one every so often that I forget. Like I forgot about it. So when Charizard, first I was pumped to see that I got the car. Like that was my goal for the game. I find myself not logging on as often because I'm like I already got what I came here for.
Well, I feel it's stupid if they really are going to implement a lower than 2 diamond threshold on trades because I can't understand the purpose of trading at that point. Like, why would I ever? I told Leah, like, Leah's like, should I quit playing? And I was like, well, if you plan on giving me stuff, like, because that's what your plan is, I'd love if you just keep logging on. But now they're just like, oh, you can't trade anything.
They've got to adjust that. There's no point to trade. Like, and then another thing is, like, you know what sucks? Cards that when I first fucking got, like, the good super rare ones that got me fucking jazzed, now I pull another one and it's the same as if I pull the fucking Rattata or something.
Dude.
So, like, those are great for trading.
That new set, I think I pulled 4 of those stupid Aerodactyl EXs or 5 of the Pidgeot EXs. And every time they come up, and I'm just like, okay, cool, thanks. Yeah. Another one. Cool.
Yeah, I don't really open them. Like, I got to a point where I had most of the cards from the Mew packs, and then I wanted that Charizard, so I was like, I'm just going back to the old ones till I get what I... And along the way, I got a lot of good shit. I almost have all of the original, like, cards.
Yeah.
Which makes playing it so difficult because, like, now the opportunity of me pulling something I actually need.
I know. I need, like, that dopamine hit more realistic, more often if I'm going to keep trying. Or not, I'm going to spend my real money on real Pokemon packs at this point.
Pulling the card I got really was, like... It's changed how I play the game almost entirely. Like, I still get on, but I have to think about it. Like, I forget. I'm like, oh, right, Pokemon.
Did they announce? I don't know if they actually announced when that next set was coming out, but I just heard it was soon.
You telling me is the first I've heard of it, even.
Oh, well, they said that they were going to bundle the trading functionality with the next set. That's why, like, the announcement all came out at once. But I don't know.
I saw new data was downloading on my game last weekend. I was like, oh, new packs? And then it wasn't. I was like, bummer.
Let's see if anything popped up on the internet here. Oh, never mind. The first article I see says rumor, so I'm good. Oh, wait. The new expansion coming January 29th.
Oh, shit. Okay, next week.
Oh, shit. It's my mom's
Good thing
birthday.
I'm saving up all my... I'm going to save up my fucking powder then.
There you go. So as soon as it drops, you can hit that 10-pack.
That'll be fun. That's dopamine right there. See, when you first start the new packs, even basic cards, you're like, yeah,
dude, give me the
like when that Mew one came out, I was like, wow, this is great. And my first pack, I pulled like the better of the Gyarados EXs, so I was like, this is gonna be a fun time.
One of the other things that I forgot to mention about talking about like the latest expansions is that I really haven't played a Pokemon game since Black and White. Like legitimately, I just haven't. And it's funny to pull cards that I have no idea are actual Pokemon anymore. Because like I'll pull somebody and
you're way out of the loop.
Who are you? Like,
that happens to me sometimes, and I have played all the games. So
I guess worry. Like
there was one that I pulled that I was like, I don't know what this is.
In Prismatic Evolution, I don't know. Maybe you can fill me in on this. In Prismatic Evolution from Scarlet and Violet, there's now like these. What I can only describe as ogre masks.
Oh, yes. They're from a DLC that I have not finished. Like, I know what you're talking about, but I can't give you, like...
I pulled a bunch of trainer cards about, like,
Miranda.
search your desk for these 4 ogre cards. And I was like, is that a Pokemon? Is that a Kabuki mask? Like, what are we talking about here?
Kind of. Hey man, they're making Pokemon out of anything they can at this
Or there's
point.
like the new version in the Pokemon cards of like future and past as well, where you've got like I don't know if you've seen that, where it's like
that's in the game. That's
Whipping Tail or whatever it is. And it's
that is the like premise of Scarlet and Violet. One of them has futuristic Pokemon, one of them has prehistoric Pokemon. The prehistoric Charizard is fucking awesome looking.
There's like some cool shit like Iron Tail and Iron whatever, dude, and I'm like, those are cool, but I don't know them.
If you're having a good Pokemon time and you just want to play, Scarlet and Violet are a fucking mess. Don't get me wrong, but they are fun little Pokemon games, and I really think you'd have a fun time playing it.
I'm not hurting for things to play right now, but at the same time, it is something that I'm like in the back of my head. I'm like
scratching.
I'm all in on cardboard at this point. Like I'm just deep in the cardboard realm.
That's fair. That's fair.
I'm just having a good time ripping open packs.
But if you want to branch,
we're getting close to the weekend, and I can easily see myself back at a card shop within the next 2 days, ready to pick up a couple more packs. Or now that I've got my distinct list of what I'm looking for from the first 3 sets, going through their like individual cards, I'm like, okay, I need that Hitmonchan. Perfect.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Didn't they recently like re-release like the original packs too?
Yeah, so I think it was think it was a couple of years ago, they did their like Pokemon 151 re-release, but it was originally under the title of whatever the game at the time was. So Sword and Shield 151 or whatever, but it was only exactly that, the 151 cards. And damn if the world didn't go crazy for those sets. I was a little bit before my interest, but like those were the videos that you saw of like people storming Costco to like beat each other up to pick up the blister packs and stuff like that. Like, I don't think I understand it because it wasn't even the original art. It's like, we reimagined all 151. I'm like, that's cool. Not going to argue that's not cool. Mm-hmm. But that's also not the heart of what it is to me for the 151. Like,
it's not the heart of the cards.
It's not the heart of the card. Oh, I even went through all those too. I just like reclassified all my Yu-Gi-Oh cards. I was surprised to see how much the stuff that I had. But we played with ours. Mine are not in good shape. Mine are shuffled a billion times.
Yeah. Same. My Pokemon cards are in like a bin or a binder. My Yu-Gi-Oh cards, they're out in case, If I learned anything watching that show, somebody could challenge me to a duel at any moment.
A rare hunter's gonna bust.
I don't want to be like, let me run home and grab my binder. No, I got my deck fucking set.
Actually, I'm disappointed that you don't walk around more often with your dual disc attached. I mean, how do you know if something's not gonna burst out at any time?
I assume if they're gonna burst out at me right now, they'll have the means to make it happen for
me.
That's
fair. They could just walk you to the nearest like Kaiba Corp location.
Remember that episode where fucking Bandit Keith got possessed by Merrick and he kidnapped Yugi and they dueled in a burning building? The bad guys find a means for you to duel by any means necessary.
The guy who's like the dark magician, the dark magician, like chains Yugi to saw fucking Blaze in the basement of his card shop. Yeah, he's like, hey Yugi, if you lose this battle, you also get your legs cut off.
And it's Kids WB, so you better win, or they're gonna cancel us.
Actually, I don't know. Did you see the Yu-Gi-Oh game they're gonna be releasing coming up here, which is like a bunch of unreleased American versions of Japanese games and a whole collection of some of the original Yu-Gi-Oh games all in one collection pack. It's going to be on Switch and Steam and all sorts of stuff.
I haven't seen that, but that sounds like of the ones that got released in America that I'm actually surprised got released in America games, they're pretty fun. Like they
like don't follow any real rules. Yeah, they're the one where you can like make your own Yu-Gi cards. Yeah, they're gonna release a bunch of like Dark Duel stories for Game Boy Color. They're gonna release
what a classic.
There's the one for Game Boy Advance. There's a couple for Game Boy Advance. One where you're actually like a little avatar and you walk around Battle
I played
City.
that one. Yeah,
that one's coming back out.
That one's the best one, dude. Dark Duel stories. It's
batshit. It's off the walls. You make your own Yu-Gi-Oh cards.
Oh yeah, it's a fantastic game. But it was the first. It's like the episode of South Park where like Pokemon are coming out and they're making all the different things. Like first there was the show, then first we had the cards, then we had the show, and then we were like, well, did you get the video game? Dark Duel Stories was that video game for Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yes, the original for Game Boy Color. It was
everybody
incredible.
had it. It came with Yu-Gi-Oh cards.
Yeah. Well, funny enough, I actually bought mine used from GameStop, meaning I didn't get the Yu-Gi-Oh cards with it. I just got the cartridge, which is I know, made big mistakes. The other one that I was really excited about that's coming out in that collection though is the Dungeon Dice Monsters game for Game Boy Advance, which was also a banger of a game. And the fact that that's coming back out too, I was pretty excited about.
I want to play that fucking game because I have the version of that game that I own. I can't even tell you at this point how I acquired it. It is the Japanese version of the game, and I have no idea what the fuck's going on.
I can't believe that plays on your old console. Like, I thought they were region locked at a certain point.
No, I think that was something they added later.
Or did you just accidentally switch the language and can never get back to switching it to English?
I don't think so. No, because the casing, it's the cartridge is Japanese. And I just remember being so totally fucking lost. And I think I played a card game emulator one that was in Japanese, like from being on Kaza and shit.
Yeah, so besides the ones that I've already
besides
the ones that I've already kind of said, there's like 5 other ones that are coming out in this collection that have never been translated or released in
Those
America.
Are kind of the ones I'm most interested in because I've played the ones I could.
One of those, a couple of them are Yu-Gi-Oh games, traditional or Dark Duel Stories, I'm not sure, and maybe non-traditional. But then there's also one more kind of
traditional enough.
Capsule monsters. I don't know if you remember that from like the original manga way back in the day where they had like the little capsule monsters and they were playing on like a tile board. I guess there's a capsule monster game that was never released in America, so that's getting ported over now too. So there's a lot of stuff that's coming through with this, and I'm kind of excited about it. Could be interesting.
I think I'm also, dude. I had an RTS Yu-Gi-Oh game. I think it was called Nightmare Trabouter. Was its name for my GameCube. And I remember being so just like, what the fuck is this? Like, this is not but I still liked it, but I didn't like it. I think I'd like it a lot more now.
Did you ever have the opportunity to play Duelist of the Roses from PlayStation 2? That was another off the chain Yu-Gi-Oh game where you like set cards on a, let's just say a 12 by 24 grid, and they like move around, and then you fight each other by like running into each other's cards and then attacking it. It was weird.
I've never played that. The PlayStation 2 ones I never got an opportunity to play because I didn't have one when we were kids. I had a game.
That one I had to rent a couple times at like video rental places, and it was called Duelist of the Roses. Hard as hell. I've actually watched people play it recently and realized that like it was not meant for children. It was meant for people who understood. It's called.
And I feel that way about this Nightmare Trabouter game too.
It's called Early Days Collection, and it's available on February 27th. And there are, starting in 98, they have a Duel Monsters game from 1998.
That's only Japanese.
Originally released in Japan. And then you've got 3 more in that series up to 2000, which is Dark Duel Stories. And then it goes back to a couple Japanese games. Then you get up to the Sacred Cards. That's the one that we're talking about from Game Boy Advance, where you're a little avatar walking around Battle City.
That game is. Have you played that one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had that one.
So good. So that was one of the first.
But that still had that rule where like there was the element type advantage, which was always how I beat the hard people. Like the only way to beat Meiku with his water was like bring in a deck full of electric, because then you didn't have to worry about attack power. But yeah, and then after Sacred Cards, there's like 2 more. Yu-Gi-Oh! Rashif of Destruction, Stairway to the Destined Duel, and World Champion 2024. There's a couple.
I remember when that World Champion 2024 one came out, but I never. The Yu-Gi-Oh! Video games are such like I either know a fuckload about them or I don't. Like there's no in between. The cool thing about Yu-Gi-Oh! Too is like, there's so many games that the manga creates that they make for these video games. Like I feel like as Americans, we kind of got like the lesser of what makes Yu-Gi-Oh! Cool.
There are 14 games in this collection. Of the 14 games in this collection, 1, 2, 3 of them were in English. So wow, 9 of these games have never been played in English.
I'm totally going to pick this up.
Yeah, the hard part's going to be like how you sort through all the games and decide what you want to play.
I think I'd play some of the ones I haven't played first, because like I
know, but there's 9 of them is what I'm saying.
I need to look into this.
How do you decide which one you want to jump into first? This definitely also feels like a Switch game over a Steam game. I think it'd be so much more fun to play this on. I guess your Steam Deck would get away with it, but
I would still
feels
prefer
like a
it on my
game.
Switch. The Switch is a more comfortable portable console.
Exactly.
I love
it's
my
easier
Steam
to
Deck,
hold.
but it's just, I don't know.
Also, they top out at 2004. There's not a game older than 2004 on here. 1998 to 2004.
I wonder if there's going to be another, because Lord knows there's been games since 2004.
Yeah, I don't know. That's why they call it the early days. I mean, this first one being in 1998 has like an image of Yugi on it that is such like early manga days. Like everything's way more like swooshy and hilarious. So I don't know. Yeah. I'm excited.
Yeah, I will totally check that out. It's a damn shame that I probably won't, they'll probably not mail me a couple Yu-Gi-Oh cards for buying the game like they would have back in the day.
Let's see. Is there there is a pre-order. Games. Let's see. If you buy the physical pack, there are 2 cards. Harpy's Feather Duster and an alternative version of Harpy's Feather Duster. So you get both of those.
Why?
Oh, wait. A physical copy of one of the above cards will be in the copy of the Switch game only. So you're either going to get the Harpy's Feather Duster or the alternative Harpy's Feather Duster. They're calling them quarter-century secret rares, which is an interesting delegation. And you get one of them every time you buy the Switch game in physical media.
I'm going to buy this game like 15
I know
times.
you are. As soon as I said that, I was like, I know my man's going out there to pick this game up immediately.
Like, so I can get 2 Harpy's Feather Dusters. As
yeah,
if I don't have like a fucking 1,000 of those things.
It's random.
I might not.
You go buy 2, you're going to get 2 of the same Harpy Feather Duster, and then I'm going to buy 1 off you for half price.
How much is this game? What is it? What's it cost?
Let me see.
I feel like this should be like a $20 thing. Right.
Physical addiction. I don't know. Maybe let me like look at GameStop. Let me see if GameStop has it like listed.
GameStop, do they even still have a website?
I heard that they're shut down every physical store in the U.S. this year. I don't know if that's true. Could be a rumor.
I mean, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I mean, when I heard that news, I was like, well, oh my god, it's pre-order for $50.
$50? That's steep.
$50.
I will not buy this game.
Contains 1 of 2 quarter-century secret rare Harpy Feather Duster trading cards for $50 on Switch.
Feather Duster is the like. This is the card you get, Harpy Feather Duster.
Yeah, honestly, I would have assumed you would have went with something like traditional, like a Dark Magician, a Blue Eyes, something relevant. But no.
Either give us something cool or something like that. You know what I mean? Like first start, give us something cool that we can't get anywhere else. Start with that. If you're not gonna do that, yeah, a Blue Eyes, a Dark Magician. There's a lot of options before Harpy's Feather Duster. Fuck off.
Not to mention I haven't kept up much with the meta, but last time I checked, I thought it was restricted and or banned from gameplay.
Harpy's
It was such an OP card because it could just nuke everybody's back line. So I don't know if that's true or not, but it was at one point. I think it was severely restricted to 1 per deck, if nothing else.
That's where you automatically became a villain in real life at Yugioh dueling tournaments when you were the guy that busted out Harpy's Feather Duster. And just like in the show, people are like, I guess we have to deal with this and fight through it. Well, he did it. We can't turn it around now.
The difference in real life is we just beat those kids up. We're like, hold on, what'd you do? No, we're going to fight now. We're going to throw hands.
Right now. And he's like, no, we're in the Shadow Realm. If you come near me, your grandfather's leg will start to slowly disappear with every step you take.
We're gonna recreate Yu-Gi-Oh! And if you play that card, I'm kidnapping your grandfather right now. Like I'm going to your house.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Was pretty fucking hardcore, and I didn't notice it at the time. And
well, that's because like the WB serialized a lot of like the really fucked up shit.
Sure.
Like taking the guns out.
But I haven't even seen a lot of that shit, other than when I've read through like the manga and stuff. It's still in memory to me. There's that episode where Joey is possessed by Merrick, and Merrick is just possessing people. And
Merrick was really good at spiritual possession all the time.
And they're just dueling over the river, and they both have anchors tied to their legs, and like the more life points they lose. And like that's what happened. Like it's crazy. It's crazy.
Hold on, we got even one more when it was his own like decision, which was back on Pegasus's castle, where Kaiba literally was like,
just gonna say Kaiba
I'm gonna lose this duel, so I'm going to force you.
If you do it, I'm gonna kill myself.
Because the explosion from your attack will knock me off the wall of this castle, and I will die.
I fucking
emo bitch.
I rewatched this shit over, right before COVID, I'd say. Braden, I think, and I were watching it, and I just remember seeing that and being like, yeah, that's right. Kaiba does, like, gaslight Yugi and fucking be like, if you beat me, you're the fucking bad guy because
your attack will knock me off this ledge due to pure force of my technology.
And as a kid, like, that was just like, oh, fuck. You know what I mean? And now I'm like, well, fuck is right. Jesus Christ, Kaiba.
Well, I think there were also some like really weird shit with like Bakura where he was like feeding people's souls to like the soul eater at some point in Pegasus's woods. There was a lot of weird stuff there. So yeah, man, it was good stuff.
Seto Kaiba is just listen, just watch the show and listen to this man speak. I would vote for him as president someday. I've never seen a guy just so devoted to his cause to a level of just what some might call insanity, I call commitment. Seto Kaiba is one of the wildest anime characters I've ever experienced.
What's wild
he's
too
so everything he does 110%. He's just a dick about it. That's it. I'd vote for him.
He was like, I'm gonna get my brother and I out of this orphanage by beating you at chess, and then they're like, all right, well, we're gonna turn you into a business mastermind, and then somehow that fast forwards to he's like, I'm gonna put Yu-Gi-Oh cards on my rocket ship so the aliens can duel in the future. I'm just like, what?
That's what I'm saying, bro. He's committed, and he's not kidding. He's everything he says. He's 100%. I hope if you go on YouTube, I hope you. I don't know if this is something that's doable, but just write in like Seto Kaiba quote, or just like, like. Just a clip of all of his random one-liners. This man is fucking crazy, but he's also a prodigy. You know what I mean? He's literally one of the best. He's the best other than Yugi. And that's the thing. It's what's hard to watch about him is like he is as good as he is. He's Tom Brady, and Yugi is just somebody that's just better than him.
Just naturally inclined. But it also isn't fair because Yugi's got like a billion-year-old spirit inside of him, like
sure, but
winning on his behalf.
If you would have told me we'd be talking this deep about Yu-Gi-Oh tonight, I'd call you crazy. But what I want to say to that is the series does end with like Yugi and the Pharaoh dueling, and Yugi wins. Because if you think about through the whole series, yes, he uses Yami's body, but the thinking side of Yugi during duels is always Yugi.
What's his spirit's name? Because I only just read it the other day.
Something with a T. If you say it to me, I'll be like, yes, that's it. Yami Yugi's actual name is I'm sad at myself.
It's Atem. It's A-T-E-M. Atem. Yeah.
Atem. So
Pharaoh Atem.
I said there was A-T.
You're right. I mean, it's the main function of that name. Yeah, Atem is. I never followed it to its logical
Japanese
anime. I never finished it. I actually don't. I like after the whole like Seal of Orichalcos series. I kind of like. I don't want to say grew up, but it's pretty much what happened. I grew up and quit watching it, and but I don't know. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I feel like I'm missing out on aspects of my mind. It's kind of like finding out that like Pokemon ended, and you're just like, oh, what?
I totally get. That was wild. I totally get that though, because I remember I was petering by the end. Like I was missing. I was pretty much out.
You were probably hanging out doing things at the time because it had to have been a close circle.
Yeah, I mean, probably pushing 9th grade for us when the show ended in America. But I remember it ended with the Pharaoh had to leave, but the only way he would leave is if him and Yugi dueled or some shit, and Yugi beat him.
Yeah, I did not. I think I knew that because of reading it.
And it's in the manga too. They do this.
No. I didn't finish it. I just I read that online. Like I think I read the story of how it ended at one point because I knew I wasn't going to go back and rewatch it. Because that's the other part too. There's a Pluto channel on where it's just like Yu-Gi-Oh reruns, and I watch it, and I have a lot of the same commentary in my head that we're having right now, where I'm just like, this is insane. This is absolutely absurd. Like, what is happening?
The craziest thing about that is that Yu-Gi-Oh is on the Pluto channel. I'm like, fuck, is it really that old? Fuck.
Yeah.
But
man,
I guess it makes sense. But I get that too, because if I was to do a rewatch, I would probably stop around what I really gave a shit. I'd probably even not watch the Orichalcos stuff.
No, I watched like some of the highlights of like some of the Battle City things, and that was about the extent of it. And I was just like, oh, this is on. This is fun to get high to.
A lot of that shit is it's the problem. We're really deep diving here. The problem with the ending bits of Yu-Gi-Oh is like it does Battle City, and Battle City goes on for a while, and there's a couple filler arcs that they put in.
Yeah, there's like one where they have to go fight like the board of directors at Kaiba
in the virtual world. Total filler arc, and I didn't get that as a kid at the time. I was just like, okay, I guess we're doing this now for a year of watching television, and then so that's filler. But then after Battle City, it goes to the Orichalcos stuff, which is filler for also a really long time. but things just start to feel redundant. Like they basically are like, oh, there's these 3 god card monsters. Like they start doing the same stories again, and that's why I think people fell off before. Because like in the Orichalco shit, there's the 3 dragons or whatever that they have to get.
No, I think I got to like, once I realized there was a new dual disc coming out, I was just like, all right, I'm gonna take a break, and then I never got back into it.
Oh yeah, that went on, at least for us in like America at the time, when you couldn't just watch anime on the internet all the time. It took years to get through all that.
Yeah, that's, so by the time it got
back to canon shit, which was vastly different than everything that came before it, almost has nothing to do with dueling. And then
I knew none of this. You're like informing me of all this. Like I didn't know. First off, I didn't know that Orichalcos was technically a filler. Didn't know that.
Not in the manga.
To be fair, I don't know what's defined as a filler when you're that young anyway, because like it's all just on WB.
Yeah.
Like
I didn't
where's the
know
discrepancy?
It at the time. I didn't know it at the time.
That's like finding out like later on Naruto episodes that you have access to watch online. You're just like, oh, skip that arc because it's not true. And it's like, yeah, but if they would have if they just would have put that on Adult Swim or Toonami, I would have watched it, because that's how that works. Like I wasn't intelligent enough to discern between what's real and what's not relevant to the story. So yeah, that's all interesting. I doubt I'll ever go back.
I'd say check out the manga, dude. Because because like the manga starts really super crazy, so it catches really quick. But then it does start doing what the anime is. And it's fun, and then it takes you through. I
actually have right here where my finger's at in my bookshelf is actually the first 5 issues.
Oh yeah, I can see Yugi's hair.
Yugi manga. So
yeah, do it. Check it out. Get into it. Dive into it.
Jesus.
Yu-Gi-Oh's good shit. Yu-Gi-Oh's good shit.
Yeah, man.
Would have never guessed we'd be sitting here talking about it tonight, but yeah.
I know, it's a long story. I mean, going through Shogun to Junji Ito to Pokemon cards to Yu-Gi-Oh! It's a good connection.
Yeah.
We're just walking our way through.
Well, I better jump into my shit, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. I think we're at that time.
Because one of my things is a rather big thing, but the first one we'll talk about for a couple minutes, but yeah, I as you know,
I probably need to get another beverage.
Do you want to get another beverage? I'll wait.
Yeah, I think
go grab one. Yeah,
I'm gonna go grab another beverage. I'll be right back.
Sounds good.
All right, let's get back at it.
So, as I've talked to you about, and pretty much everybody that has come into my
inner circle
atmosphere, I guess, my orbit per se. Here's that my latest not obsession, but thing that I'm into and think is really awesome is I've been reading through the Wheel of Time.
Right.
Pretty religiously over the past couple of months. To a little break, got back in pretty strong. I love it. I'm about 500 pages into the 6th book, so almost done with that.
6th book out of
14.
Okay.
Including a prequel that I will read after the series. So 15 actually, but 14 that I have to read. And I'm at there's 200 pages left, so that's still like a good chunk of story of this book, but almost done with the 6th book. And I just fucking love this shit. It's really good. I think the story is really good. I think there are things about it that are a little slow or a little different, but I love it. I love it so much. And
I feel like you're already describing, right? You have 200 odd pages left, meaning you said it was, did you say it was 600 pages?
It's a 700 page book roughly.
One of my things with modern day fantasy authors is just that concept of like, of course there has to be slow, because how do you keep 700 pages engaging? So like when you say like, oh, it's sometimes a little slow, it's like, I think that comes naturally with this, the size of these series that you're reading right now. Yeah. I think it'd be weird if you told me that Wheel of Time was like all gas, no brakes all the time. Cause I'd be like, how do you write like that?
You don't. You absolutely don't. And that is kind of mostly what I'm going to get into about this thing that I'm going to talk about it tonight. Because I think I love these books, dude. I haven't really got into a book series to this degree in a pretty long time. But they're, the way they are written, they are extremely wordy. Robert Jordan, the author, really likes to paint a scene, a picture. He wants you to know what the fuck is going on and what everything around looks like and what everybody in the scene looks like. He really wants you to know. And he does a great way of kind of doing that. It could not work for everybody, but what the thing is, with this man, he finds a way to blend his writing in to where if another author did this same thing where they over explained a scene or something, they don't have that ability to like make something happen to make you go, holy fuck, what's going on? Like this guy weaves in like I've said this a few times since I've been talking about it, but there are points where sometimes you're in a scene just learning about a new character and what their clothes are like and what their belt might be made of.
Oh.
And then all of a sudden that character fucking kills a guy or something and you're like, whoa, we're going. Like that's the thing. It's just driving the speed limit. It's like, imagine you're driving down the $1 Million Highway and the guy in front of you is just like driving normally. And then out of fucking nowhere, he slams on the gas and just starts whipping down the highway. You'd be like, whoa, that's how this guy writes. Like you're just going along. He's telling you a story. And then from time to time, shit happens. And you're like, all right, we're going. And
he just throws it in there.
And he just does a really good job with that. And even like there are times where I'm even reading and I'm like, get on with it already. But when it gets there, I'm just like, yeah, I'm so glad we took like the slow burn to get to all of these things. And all of the books so far have been like that. The 5th book in particular, the last one that I read, was so fun. It was like that build. It's like driving the speed limit going. And it was doing that all the books. But like it seems slow into terms of like how that whole book was just like, we're just slamming on the gas way more often than we're not. And I was like, this is a great book. And the 6th book kind of slows down again, but I've still been there have been some big things that just make me go like, holy fuck, again. I'm taking a break after I finish the 6th book to read a couple other things. But like I said, this guy is very descriptive. I don't think he's for everybody. I don't think he's for everybody. I don't think the way he writes is for everybody. But I think the story itself is for everybody because it's so fucking good and well told. So I recently stumbled upon let me backtrack. There's a show that's on Amazon right now. I've watched a little bit of the first episode and I get why people who know the series don't like it. It's because they change things. It's different than what is perfect. And it's just like, why make these changes? And that made me so sad. And then the other night, Miranda and I were watching the new season of Castlevania. And all I could think about watching that beautifully animated, wonderful little show was, man, I wish Wheel of Time would have done an animated series like this instead. So I found the next best thing, though. They released and are currently still releasing a Wheel of Time graphic novel series. So it's a comic book version of I bought the digital of the Wheel of Time like series.
Okay.
And it tells the story as it even says like written by Robert Jordan.
They translated the story.
They translate the
comic
book into the comic. And let me tell you, man, it's a really fun medium because, like I said, this author is really painting a picture in every scene of everything you're watching about it. So, your brain does the work when you're reading, but man, do you want to see it. This comic series, one, it takes the things that maybe you weren't sure about what things look like and kind of gives you a better picture, but it also is cool to see parts that I've read being like, that looks exactly how I kind of pictured it in my head. That's, the ability of this author and these artists working on this.
Which is interesting because I think that there still is as well, but there was some sort of version of that when it came to Game of Thrones as well, where they turned Game of Thrones into a comic book graphic novel.
Makes sense.
With those individuals. I remember reading back in college, back when, I don't know, season 3 of Game of Thrones was out, and I was getting into it, but I knew I was never going to commit to the book, so I started reading this comic book that at the time was being released in trade paperback because it had been out for so long. But I actually had one of the exact opposite issues, which was that because my first experience with Game of Thrones was the TV show, I had the perspective that they were showing me at the time. I had a hard time reading the comic book because I felt that maybe their vision was more accurate to the book.
Right.
But it wasn't accurate to the TV show.
Show you were
now
watching.
I can understand the perspective of being like, you haven't seen a digital media that you actually liked because the Amazon TV show has whatever pitfalls that it has. But then you can look at that and be like, nah, man, this is it.
Yeah. Yeah. And just having the ability, because like I'm so bummed that the show is not, doing the, like, I've read the perfect version, and I get that if people didn't read this, why they'd probably think the show is good or fun.
Okay,
because I'm sure it's still a good show. I'm sure it's still a good show for what they're doing, but it's not what I'm reading, and what I'm reading, even from, and some people in like the realm of Wheel of Time think the first book isn't really that good. The more books I read, the more I appreciate. I loved the first book, and the more books I read, the more I appreciate how good the simple times of the first book was. And I had a really good time. And the thing with this graphic novel, so far what they released is they have the entire first book, The Eye of the World. That whole book is done in the comic, and they've just started the second book. I bought the first
they're
volume.
back there though.
They're back there though. Yeah. So that's the thing. But I'm glad it exists. It's so cool.
Yeah.
Like in the artwork. So the series came out. This guy was pounding these books out throughout the 90s, like year after year.
I was about to actually make a joke about that and say that the first book came out in January 15th, 1990. The second one came out in November 15th, 1990. So 11 months later, that is unheard of, especially
this guy tore
today.
Through books.
Because it's 688 pages and then 624 pages, 624 pages. And he just cooked them. Now, he took a slightly longer break. Actually, no, he didn't. That's the same amount of time.
He doesn't start hitting breaks till like late in the game, and then he died. So, like...
Right. Yeah. I think I knew that because Sanderson picks him up at 12.
Finished it for him. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
This guy tore through book, and I'm telling you, dude, that like it really makes me be like, come on, George, you could have got more books done faster. Because this guy's putting this shit out, which I think is, God, the more I read it, the more I'm falling for it. The more I'm like, this is I like this more than other things, actually, a lot.
That's fair. That's an interesting comparison. I really do think that
I can talk all day about how I feel about Wheel Time.
If I may go for it, I'm just saying that I think that George R.R. Martin had such a different life cycle as an author compared to this guy who, I don't know, what were these popular at his time of being alive?
I think they were most popular at the time of him being alive, actually. Yeah. Because it's hard to for something that is as amazing as it is, and people know about and people talk about, there's not a lot of shit out there for it or about the fact that I found this graphic novel. I was like, this is amazing, and I love it because it's really the artwork in this. I had it up a little bit, but the style they kind of go with is that these were written in 2000. I think the first one came out around 2013, and now the show kind of brought it back, so that's why they're doing the rest. But they have the artwork, very 90s art comic book style looking characters, but cleaned up really nice in the modern digital you know what I mean? It looks really
So do they have physical media of that, or is it only digital?
Yes, you can buy the physical. I wanted to check it out before this recording, so I just bought some.
Invest in a bunch if you don't like it.
What sucks about the Eye of the World one I have is I'd probably rather get that one in person because it doesn't work really well on the iPad, but it's
when
just
asked
so cool.
in 2013 interview about whether the comics would continue their run, Harriet McDougal replied, "Well, eventually we'll do the whole thing unless it stops selling in a dreadful way. In other words, I really don't know." The 43 New Spring and Eye of the World comics were later collected together and released as a series of 6 graphic novels, the last of which were released in February 2015. And then Dynamite began publishing comic adaptations of The Wheel of Time, The Great Hunt in November 2023.
Yeah. And the collected version of it came out in December of 20. That's what I bought, was all those. So that's the thing. It's a monthly issue series. I would buy it in a collection. But yeah, I'd say if you got into the series that way, that would kind of suck because that you'd be waiting on the comic when there's so much more shit. Some of these fucking books, I'm I can't wait to see this shit comic booked.
If you're not it almost feels like you would do yourself a service by just sticking to the original media and being
but I could understand why it would be too much, because there's a lot of things about just seeing it in this comic book form that I think would, dude, this guy makes so many characters. This is a good thing, but as a reader, it's hard to, like, you in your head are just trying to keep up with all these characters. There are so many, and there are so many that as I'm reading, I'm just like, I have no idea who this is, and I'm just gonna carry on. And then I'll go, like, I have a reading companion eventually my brain will pick up who this is, but right now, and there's so many names, that kind of sound alike, and there's so many different groups. It's very detailed that I think the comic, like, seeing these characters, just seeing them, you kind of always know who somebody is because they look like them and not how you might have created a character in your head. And some characters fucking are gone for like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages of shit that's happened later.
Skip an entire book and then come back in the next
again?
one. You're
and
like,
I gotta,
I don't remember him.
Back. I bought a reading, or I didn't buy, like, download the app. It's a reading companion. You look up people's names and it'll tell you, like, by the book who the fuck they are. And it's very helpful.
Nice that somebody put that together.
There's a lot. But in a comic, even the little bit that you get in the first book, I'm like, yeah, this helps. This helps dramatically, and it's gonna help way more down the road because there's a fuck ton of characters. But, like, if you get through all that, it is such a beautiful story, and I don't know, finding it in comic form was so cool. Because if the book doesn't work for you, I think the story is a 10 out of 10 and doesn't stop.
There's your approachability. I mean, that's awesome. Sucks that it's so far behind, but it'll get there. You just got to be aggressively patient.
Well, it's kind of fun for me because, like, I'm 6 books in roughly, so all those 6 books are kind of still fresh in my mind. I feel like if, like, I read the whole series and years and years and years and years and years went by, and then I read the graphic novel for the first book, I'd be kind of reading a kind of again for the first time in a way. Whereas now when I'm reading and I'm like, I remember this, it's so sharp in my mind that it's fun seeing. Like, I haven't forgotten anything. So I'm looking for specific
I know that you're also
scenes.
reading in parallel, or maybe not so much in parallel. I know you're still kind of dabbling in Sanderson as well. And it's interesting that you kind of bring up the concept of an aggressive amount of characters, because I know in Mistborn there aren't too many characters. There's a couple of main characters, and then there's a couple of side characters, and then a couple of antagonists. So you're saying that, like, when you really compare it, you're talking double, triple, like, just multiple storylines, the whole nine?
Dude, I'm saying there's no, like, I couldn't tell you a number. There's way more characters in Wheel of Time. Like,
yeah.
So many fucking more. Like, it's not even, I couldn't tell you.
And the book, like, jumps chapter
just
to
from
chapter.
The first book. There's different perspectives.
Like,
as the series goes on, you get different groups, different perspectives of the story. But the first book, you're kind of just in one, maybe a couple characters' perspectives. But those perspectives
grow. On-ramp.
the perspectives grow. Sometimes you're just thrown into the perspective of a character and you have no idea who they are. And you're just reading and like, what the fuck is going on now all of a sudden? And it's like the darkest shit you've ever heard of. And you're like, okay, I'm sure that'll come back up and bite our heroes in the ass eventually. Like, a lot of reading this is just like, the way he writes too, like, sometimes I'm just confused and I'm like, did I miss something? And then it gets a little farther. And
you're just like, hold on a
minute.
He
reveals, like, no, you didn't miss. This is just how I'm telling it. Like, you're supposed to find out now what the fuck's going on. And you're just like, damn, okay, keep going.
It's interesting.
Me and my buddy the other guy that got me into Wheel of Time, are gonna do a couple videos talking about, like, the 3. I've read 6 books. I'll have read, so we're gonna do 2 videos of 3 books. I'm gonna get way more in detail about how I feel about Wheel of Time in those. But I'm telling you, man, what a fun fucking story, that little journey I'm on. I do intend to get back to. So my plan for right now is I'm gonna wrap up this 6th book. I'm gonna take a break. On the side during that break, though, I'm going to finish. I'm going to do a couple books at a time, but I'm going to do the Onyx Storm because my copy's coming to that tomorrow. The new Stephanie Yaros, the 4th Wing series.
Books. I'm not familiar.
They're like the new popular thing.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that at all.
Pretty good. No, so I've read the first book. I had a banging time reading it. Second one came out just before Sora was born, so I didn't get to finish it. So I got to finish that. And then I'm going to read the new one that just came out yesterday. But they're compared to Wheel of Time. That's the thing. Wheel of Time gives me the confidence that I can plow through books.
I recognize the Fourth Wing. Like I recognize this cover, if nothing
beautiful
else.
They are beautiful books. That you know me, man. As soon as I saw that book, I was like, I gotta own that.
Was it shiny?
Of course. Yes, it is. It's shiny. They're in the other room. I should grab them. And then the second one, they're all shiny, all the covers. So it was right before the second one came out.
Podcast, let it be known that Chase has a lot in common with a magpie or a crow.
A crow,
If you put it
called Chase the Crow Screepack. Yeah, so that alone. But then I read this book that I really, really, really enjoyed. I could take away this. There are intimate sex scenes that I could do without, but other than those points, yeah, she was originally a romance author, and you can see it. But like other than those points, I really enjoyed the series
stuff. You'll be fine.
Yeah. So I'm gonna do that, and then I'm also on the side of that going to read the second Mistborn, the Well of Ascension.
Mistborn. That's not Well of Ascension. Is that the first one?
That is the second one. Well of Ascension. The first one is just Mistborn.
Yeah, second Well of Ascension, and the Final Empires after that, I think, or whatever it is.
The Final Empire is the first one. The third one is called the Hero of Ages, I think.
Heroes of Ages, that's what it was. Sorry, I get it mixed up.
Yeah. So my plan right now, because like I do want to get into. I've read the first Mistborn, I liked it. So I'm gonna wrap up these 3 Wheel of Times. I'm gonna do these books I just told you. The second Mistborn. I'm gonna read 3 more Wheel of Time books. Is the soft plan. And then I'm going to finish the Mistborn series. And then after that, I'm jumping on Way of the Kings.
Way of the Kings.
And I'm also sprinkling into all of that. Luckily, my job gives me this ability. I'm going to read through the Aragon series. Braden read them. Just on the last podcast we talked about, he had read through 3 of them and was starting the 4th, I believe. So I want to do that, and because like I've read the first 2 and I want to finish it, and I have them, so I'm just like, I'm gonna check this out. And then
I know very little about them other than that piss poor movie that came out many moons ago. I mean, when we were in high school, and that's literally all I know about them. Also, Jake Huffman at one point was obsessed with them, but that's all.
And I don't blame him because they're really fucking good. At least the first 2 were, and I've heard the next 2 are pretty good as well. So nice. And the thing is, like, they're big books if you remember, but man, I looked at them the other day. They are big. But the font compared to like the Wheel of Time font and like margins, I'm just like, I'm gonna rip these fuckers apart. I'm gonna destroy these books.
When I worked at the public library as well, we used to have that section that was like large font books, and it was
we have that too.
And I feel like that's what you're just. As soon as you said you're like the font, I instantly just thought,
dude, I can't imagine a Wheel of Time book in fucking large print. That would be ridiculous. They'd be ridiculous sized books. Every single
comes out just like a box. That's fair.
That's what I mean. Like, these books really have given me the confidence that I'm just like, well, this will be cakewalk. I'm going to burn through this series.
Well, even that, or compare, like, the density of what you're describing with the many perspectives and stories and characters is huge. And that's a little different than Sanderson. But then when you get to Sanderson, then you have that perspective of girth in terms of what he writes. Because like, you're looking at like 640 and things like that. And then you move up to Way of Kings from the Stormlight Archives, and then you're at 1,000 pages. So now you're like, you're hitting on 2 different directions.
I have those books, and I'm also looking at those, and I'm like, the font and the margins of this are also big. Like, they're not as big as
really? Okay.
We have them at the library. I look at them from time. Like, they're big books. They're lots of pages, but I'm also like, I don't know, the 4th Wheel of Time book, because of the text, and it might only be a 680 page book, but they got rid of margins entirely, and the text is very small.
Back when we were like writing papers in college, and you're just
we're talking that book, I think, had a 44-hour audio book. The Aragon.
Yeah, so I'm actually looking. I was about to bring that up, funny enough. So I was looking at that. They have a chart here for the Wheel of Time series and their audiobook length. And Shadow Rising, number 4, 41 hours and 13 minutes.
I was gonna say it's long. It was the first audiobook I'd ever listened to that was in the 40s.
Let me pull up my Audible subscription right now, because that's how I'm consuming The Way of Kings.
Yes.
And
I imagine they're up there.
Maybe I might not be able to tell because I'm in the middle of it. I can tell you I have 12 hours left. I don't know.
My plan after wrapping the Mistborn trilogy is to then start after the next 3 Wheel of Times, The Way of Kings. We just got the newest one at the library. What a fucking big ass book that is.
Yeah, she big boy. She a big boy.
Even if the font's a little bigger, it's still a fucking.
It's still What is that? That's I don't remember which one that one is.
Wind and Truth.
Something like that. Yeah.
I don't know much about any of it because I've never read it, but everybody says you should read Mistborn before you start reading the other ones.
Yeah, that's one of those things where I like, as somebody who's not as disciple of Sanderson, who I enjoy his books. Like, I've had a great time with Mistborn. I've had a great time with Way of Kings. I've been thoroughly enjoying it. I don't understand why they tell you that. Yeah. I don't get it. Like, if somebody was like,
I thought that.
Like, I don't get it. Like, there's nothing that you're learning in Mistborn that translates over at all. And if you're like a deep Cosmere reader and you're trying to make the connections, I've Googled it. I purposely Googled it. I was like, what are the connections between the Mistborn and the Stormlight Archives? And they're the most esoteric stuff, but they're just like, here's the connection. And you may have heard of this one character that we wrote 3 lines about in Mistborn, and here's his brother's relation in this book. And you know that because of the last names that, no offense, but you'll never remember ever. I'm sorry if you're a deep Sanderson head and I'm just not reading it thoroughly enough, but sure. I would never argue that you need to read Mistborn. I enjoyed the trilogy, had a great time reading it. I could have had the same exact time reading Way of Kings starting off and had a great time doing the same. Maybe it's the concept of like...
I figured.
Yeah, there's that concept where people, I think, like to parrot certain perspectives in the idea that like, somebody once said that the best way to read Sanderson is to start Into the Cosmere with the Mistborn trilogy, not the second Mistborn trilogy, the first Mistborn trilogy. And then I feel like that just may have been propagated. I also know Sanderson has a way into his own work that he posts on his website where he talks about like, here's how I think you should approach my work. And maybe he came out and said, read the Mistborn, and I respect that too. I'm not going to say that it's wrong. I don't think I understand why it matters, if nothing else. Like, again, they're all good works. I don't know why it matters.
That's what I've always thought. And honestly, dude, it's because that idea exists that I even think it. But like, for me, it's also like, I find that from just looking at these books, I'm like, Way of Kings and its series seems like a big fantasy epic. And I'm already reading a big fantasy epic. So Mistborn to me is little lower stakes. It's written a lot easier, less descriptive.
It's also much more linear. It's very linear in terms of the story, as opposed to when you move into the Way of Kings, you've got like 3 perspectives.
After reading 3.5 Wheel of Time books, Mistborn was... I found myself going just back to it because I was like, yes, this is so... Like, I'd be reading it on my phone in bed, which I wouldn't... Even though I love Wheel of Time more,
I'm not trying to offend anybody. And it's like, again, I'll sit here and say that I love the books. I had a great time reading them, but I would never understand why anybody would ever be like, you should start here. Like, seriously, you can start wherever you want and have a good time.
Yeah. I want to be basically done with Wheel of Time before I start the epic that at least I've been described to is the way of the Stormlight Archives.
Stormlight Archives.
So
I heard they made an incredible board game for that too,
I want to read the Game of Thrones books too. So like, I just have books that I want to get through over the course of this year or so.
I think once you crack high fantasy and you have this digestive track for high fantasy, it's a lot easier to just keep it going. Because when I started, like, I jumped into the first Game of Thrones book back when I moved to North Carolina. I jumped into it and I felt it too much. I wasn't interested. And now I think after doing things like Mistborn and Way of King or any of the Stormlight Archive books, I think that I'd be a little bit more susceptible to keep going because I just feel like I've stretched that muscle a little bit. Mm-hmm. And then I think that's probably even more so with your Wheel of Time series where it's like you stretch the muscle, you become comfortable, and then nothing is difficult at that point. Yeah. In fact, people when you're younger and you move into, even like as a kid, I remember 5th grade. Very much remember 5th grade. I picked up The Hobbit, and I found The Hobbit like weird. Like, I found it difficult. There's all the different hobbits in the Shire with all their last names, and Tolkien's like spreading this story of the Shire and all this. And I found that
off-putting. 5th grader, it's like, whoa.
Yeah, you're like, I can't stick with this. I'm not tracking, and you realize that you're almost like, at that point in your life, you're reading the world building for gospel truth. And you realize later on, you're like, oh, this is world building. I understand this now. I get it. But it's stretching that muscle and understanding that more where you get back to it and you read The Hobbit or you read Fellowship of the Ring and you're just like, okay, I'm good. Cut through it. You're done. And then you realize that Tolkien's no offense to my man, but he's a little bit more of a simplistic, straightforward writer compared to some of these things that have come many moons beyond him. When you look at like these Wheel of Times, you look at these Discworlds, you look at this Sanderson, you look at like JRR, you look at all these things and you're like, I know that they stand on the shoulders of Tolkien, not even going to shit on that. But we're talking light years ahead. We're talking advanced writing past what originally came before it. And it's just a muscle that one has to learn. Yeah, exactly. I had this conversation a couple times with people who are very much into that Sanderson perspective, where it's just like, a lot of this stuff came because of, Tolkien walks so these guys can run. And I think that's very true. But when you go back and read this stuff, you're kind of just like, okay, like, yeah, that's fair. They took the best elements of it and made it better.
Yes, I agree. And you know what's funny, dude? The thing that got me in and ready to like take on reading Wheel of Time was... one, my buddy that liked it, he had mentioned it a few times. I knew a little bit about it. I knew a basic idea. Not really what it was about, but like that it's this good fantasy series is basically all I knew. I was re-listening to a YouTuber just talk about the Silmarillion. Like I didn't want to read the Silmarillion again.
Sure,
I've read it, but I wanted a refresher course. So I was really listening to this guy just like talk about the stories on YouTube. And I listened through the Silmarillion and I was just like, wow, this is so fucking good. Like, it's so, like the story of it is so fucking good, especially like if you don't want to read the book because the book is written for the time that it came out, you can listen to a guy just tell you the story online. It had me just so into, I was in a very high, like, man, do I love fantasy. And Rings of Power was on and I was watching that and that was kind of letting me down while, the Silmarillion recap was building me up. And I was like, man, I want to get into something more fantasy. And I was just like, we'll do Wheel of Time.
I guess I actually should caveat this a little bit that when I'm talking about that high fantasy narrative, I'm not necessarily talking about a lot of that like meta books that Tolkien wrote for himself, because Silmarillion I do still to this day find thick and cumbersome and intense and almost.
And you know what? It's not that big of a book.
No, but he wrote
so much story.
Literature.
Yes, he did.
And I think that what I'm referring to is like when you take the meta work, because you can take a story, any story, and you can write sub-component books of that story and make them as thick as you want to. You can write the backstory, you can write the history. So when you come out with things like the Lord of the Rings trilogy and you've got the 3, there's a narrative in that I find, I think simplistic is mean. I don't mean to be simplistic, but much more linear than stories today, like the ones you're describing, Sanderson's author. But then, like, if somebody were to make a history book off the Wheel of Time series and create the Silmarillion of the world that you're reading, it could be just as dense. And I think that the Silmarillion etches its very unique place in fantasy history. And I think that it shouldn't be compared to the same things as maybe the Lord of the Rings trilogy, at least not natively. It's a part of it, but it's just not the main story.
Sure.
So I don't want to bring that into this fold of conversation, but the main storyline that runs the thread.
I would like to run that into that because like what I think is cool and could be a lot for some people with the Wheel of Time series is it kind of in a way has the Silmarillion within its story. Like within the story of what's going on, the Silmarillion is also being taught to you.
Maybe that's a way to go about it.
God,
like maybe that's an interesting perspective to go about it.
It's totally effective. It confuses you at times, but as soon as you know what the fuck's going on, you're like, okay, he does a really great job of like, the world is huge. Like not to keep just going back and back and back to this, but I find this series so compelling because it's one that, it's a world that has a map of like where things are and like the countries and the places and yada, yada, yada. I've never found a fantasy series just like knowing the map and where things are and the people in all of those locations, what they're about, like who they are as people is so important to the story. Like knowing where people are, what countries, what leadership they're under, yada, yada, yada are all not only in the story for what they are, but there is historical relevance to why things are that way presented to you as a reader.
See, and now that like knowing that about you and the fact that you're enjoying that perspective, this is the sort of thing where I feel like somebody should have looked at you and been like, I think you're going to have a better time with Way of Kings. Like, that's that's my perspective, because I would, I bet I'm going to say something that's going to piss a lot of readers off, but the concept being that the Lord of the Rings is to Mistborn the way that you're describing the Wheel of the Time is to the Way of Kings and the Stormlight Archives, because you have these large world building perspectives with histories of races and governments and maps and things of that nature. And I would tell you more that while there is some of that in Mistborn, I'm not discounting it, it's a lot more narrow into the story that it needs to tell, while Stormlight Archives is an entire world of Alethi, and you have this entire, not Alethi, that's only one country, you have this entire Earth that is happening in this, with the different races and the different locations. And even many of the storylines are taking place on different continents. They're not even taking place in the same storyline. Yeah. And like, but they're relevant. But they're relevant. So like, I almost say that, like, now that I know that, I didn't know this obviously at the time, I only know this because I'm reading it as well, I would have said that if you enjoy the Wheel of Time perspective, you're going to much more prefer the Stormlight Archives perspective.
But which is why I'm not reading both at the same time, because that is just such dense. That's why Mistborn is there. It's like, ooh, give me a good story, but I don't need it in such dense.
It would be like taking a break and going back and reading The Lord of the Rings. Like, it is a construed story. Yes, there's plenty of history. We know that. There's a lot going on, but it's almost linear in its way. Yeah, a couple of side tendrils of branching, but for the most part, straight through.
I want you to read The Wheel of Time. I want you to at least read the first book and see what you think. I'm going to task you with that.
I'm about to finish up.
It took me 50 pages, but by the time I got to 50, I was like, all right, I'm in.
Let's go to bed.
Oh, that's fine. Well, for those of you watching the video of this episode, if you look up in Caton's background, he has all these nice little things, all these nice games, books, toys, yada, yada, yada. There's a Pikachu that you can see. And that Pikachu, he and I won at a game at Cedar Point when we were, I think he was 18 and I was 17. It was right after we graduated. We won that Pikachu. And we give it to each other. Being the good host that I am, you know, I figured you could cut that. And oh no, I'm telling a story. Okay. And so I handed him that Pikachu when he moved to North Carolina. And that is that same Pikachu to this day. And he's traveled a great many miles.
I know.
I figured for those who watch the video, they get a little something.
He actually needs returned, because I feel like there's a new storyline involved with Sora in this Pikachu that needs to be returned at this point. I think it's your turn.
I wouldn't mind. It's crazy to think like how long it's been. I feel like I had a lot of fucking crazy times with Pikachu, but I haven't had him in a fucking long time now. So
crazy. He still has every state that he's been to. It's written on his tail.
I love that. Yeah. That's great.
And he's been to a couple. Like, he's been to a good many. So, what I was going to say before that, which I apologize about, I was like sitting here, I'm like holding this. I do want to read it because you've convinced me. What I'm reading right now is actually Journey to the West, thanks to Wukong. I'm actually reading Journey to the West. Incredible little story I'm reading there.
Journey to the West.
Journey to the West. Reading Journey to the West. Once I finish that, I don't think I'm going to finish. The version I picked has 4 volumes. I don't think I'm going to finish 4 volumes. It's an interesting story, but when you're reading like BC Chinese lore, it's kind of repetitive and relatively simplistic, and I don't think I'm going to complete it. So I think that there's going to be an opening that I'm going to pick up and move into this. Honestly, based on this conversation, I think I'm going to move over to
Eye of the World,
the Wheel of Time. So,
and if the books are just not written away for you, let's not forget what I'm actually here presenting. I would recommend at least checking out the comic, because it's a really well done. Just from what I've read, just really puts the picture that this guy's painting right in your face. And the
biggest problem for that is going to be the release availability for me, because if I like it, it's going to be like, what do I do now?
Yeah, try to just learn to like his writing. But that would be a weird thing to jump into too. Like the comic does a really good job, but it would be so weird if you read the comic and then we're like, all right, I'm going to jump into. It'd be like watching the Harry Potter movies and then being like, I'll jump into the 5th book after just watching the first 4 Harry Potter movies. You'd be like, who the fuck is who? So
no, I think I would get into the book. I don't think I'm afraid of the book. I mean, obviously you're speaking that it's a little bit more.
Just like I was saying before, I did not think I was going to be talking about this as much tonight, but like this guy packs story into what he has impressed me with is we can be almost 100 pages to the end of the book. And I'm like, how is he going to throw in a climax to this story? And he finds a way. And then in like the second book, there's even less pages. And you're like, no, this is going to have like some sort of cliffhanger. And each book kind of weaves. Now the wheel weaves as the wheel wills shit. And they weave into each other. But each book wraps up. Like he finds a way to wrap the story up.
Interesting.
And
do you find it satisfying? Like you find it a good closure for each book?
I do. I find it confused. Like sometimes, like in the first book, the magic system that you don't know very much about is just going off the fucking rails at the end, and you're just like, whoa, okay, I guess we're doing this. And like it's like 2 books later where you really kind of understand what has been happening, but you're not mad about it. You're just like, oh, that's just like the way the story is told. And yeah, it's something else, man. It's something else. But what I'm saying is there's 200 pages left of this. Earlier when we were talking about it, I was trying to give you a percentage of what I have of this book left. And I don't know, because I don't know what he's going to pack into. Like 200 pages, you'd be like, huh, probably
you're
quite
wrapping
a bit.
Up.
But like there could be like a fuck ton of things that happen between now and the end of this book.
I mean, like you just said, right? You're getting to 100 pages and you're like, how are you going to do it? So 200 pages, you could churn a whole new world out in that reality.
Yes, 100%, 100%. Yeah, read the first book. I think you'll like it.
Fair enough. I'll put it on my list. Hold on, let me find a copy real fast here. What's it called?
The Eye of the World. This is not the thing that I thought I was going to be talking about the most tonight. We still got to talk about the thing that I thought I was going to be talking about.
Oh my God, let's get into it because we're running into a deep time frame here.
I know. But I told you, I texted you this weekend. I watched the Pirates of the Caribbean trilogy.
Oh yeah,
this weekend, and fuck, man, what I just have so many thoughts about the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. The
Dude,
first
I
three.
love those fucking movies. I think they are such incredible cinema.
Fantastic. They are without a doubt the best pirate themed fictional series ever made, at least film series wise. I
have nothing to refute your statement.
Fantastic. Now, I also want to talk about, because I also watched for the very first time the 5th Pirates of the Caribbean movie. But
I will say
I want to talk about good things first.
I have never watched any of them. I've only watched the first 3, and I've heard the rumors of the next 2. I've never looked into them. I've never
the 4th one
through.
Balls. I didn't even rewatch it to talk about it tonight. I fucking hate that movie. The 5th movie, I don't have a lot of good to say, so that's why we're starting with the original trilogy.
Let's knock out the good.
Other than being the perfect pirate themed story trilogy fictional thing,
incredible.
One big thing that I've been thinking about a lot, and I thought about it as I was watching it, and in its own way, in the kind of way the Wheel of Time builds off of what Tolkien started. Pirates of the Caribbean is Star Wars, the original Star Wars trilogy, but with pirates, and not the way Skeleton Crew is Star Wars with pirates. So hear me out.
Let's make this connection, because I will be honest.
It moves things around. Not everybody is, they don't do the same things. It's like George says, it rhymes. So
sure.
Will Turner would be your Luke. Will Turner's your Luke Skywalker. He's a blacksmith at the start, but his dad is a pirate. So he's Luke.
Yep.
Leia is Keira Knightley. They're not brother and sister, but it's Leia.
I see your connection. Yep.
She is the badass bitch of the series, and she ends up doing some very big things, much like Leia herself. And Jack Sparrow is Han Solo. He's the scoundrel. He doesn't get Leia. Luke gets Leia, but that's because that's where they're shifting it. Like there's things, and then they shift it. The Empire, that's the East India Trading Company.
Sure.
But you see, the Empire and the Sith, they're not the same. The Sith, I would see, is Davy Jones. Davy Jones is kind of your Darth Vader character in the second and third. He's not a part of the first, but he is a part of the second and third. Like I'm saying, they're not doing it verbatim, but there are things that connect. Who is Davy Jones, and what is his motivation? He is this guy who used to be a pirate, used to be an honorable pirate, but he was betrayed by the woman that he loved, Calypso, and he became the king of the Dutchman, or the Dutchman. I think it was before that he became the Dutchman. His goal was to guide souls. He was like a Jedi guiding souls. And she betrayed him, so he went fucking dark. He stopped doing that job. Everybody turned into fish people. He cursed his crew. Darth Vader. The Force is the mythology that they build within this series, where pirate law, pirate code, and pirate curses are kind of the magic system. You know what I'm saying? Like, Davy Jones didn't do what he was supposed to do. He was cursed to become this fucking octopus squid people that just live forever, and he's sad.
Okay.
He's ruined. So, but also in the first movie, the Curse of the Black Pearl, with everybody turning into skeletons. Curses in this world, the world building, are a big part of like the back lore of everything going on. The Force, if you will. It's not moving things with your mind, but it is something that impacts the story, the world that they're in. So the East India Trading Company is the Empire. And at the end of the second one, so that's another thing. Empire Strikes Back and what is the second? Pirates of the Caribbean.
Dead Man's Chest.
Dead Man's Chest. Dead Man's Chest is the Empire Strikes Back. We're reconnected with these characters who had a first movie that probably could have just been one movie, but they were like, we're going to make a trilogy out of this. And they did. So that's what the second one is. And it ends with Jack Sparrow getting eaten by the Kraken. It's a dark ending. The bad guys kind of win. The East India Trading Company gets a hold of Davy Jones's heart. So even that guy, who's the main villain of the second movie, he's now under control of the real empire, the East India Trading Company. It's fucking insane how much it's like Star Wars. But it's also good on its own.
I don't know if I would make as many comparisons as you are. I see your perspective. No argument for me. But I think that there's some key differences that I don't think
as there
really
should be. As there should be.
Yeah.
Wheel of Time is not Lord of the Rings. But because Lord of the Rings exists, they can do something.
But when people look at you and be like, well, Wheel of Time is Lord of the Rings because of this, and this. Because, I mean, Keira Knightley's role is like, in your perspective, Leia, doesn't really work. Because
she becomes king of the pirates by the end.
Leia doesn't become much at the end of Return of the Jedi, like as much as well. My perspective was that, like, Keira Knightley plays a bigger role in that than Leia ever does in the first three trilogy. Not saying that she doesn't play a role. It's just that, like, Keira Knightley's kind of it at the end of that third movie, like huge at the end of that third movie. And then Leia doesn't have that perspective. Besides that, everything else I think kind of tracks. Like, your perspective is accurate.
I'm sitting here watching these movies, and I'm just sitting. I'm you know me, my brain's always on Star Wars at least a little bit. And I was just, for the first time in my life, seeing parallels. And it was funny. Like, I casually, the first one was just on. It was on Freeform, and then the second one came on, and I started.
You texted me that way because I was like, I had it on. Like, you're just like, dude, Pirates of the Caribbean. I was like, I know, actually.
I'm purely well. So we watched the second one throughout the day on Freeform, and then I was like, I'm not waiting for ads anymore. We're going on Disney Plus and we're watching At World's End. And, you know, we weren't going to watch the whole thing because it's an almost 3-hour-long movie. And I said, we'll at least get to where Jack's out of Davy Jones' locker, and then I'll call it. And then we got to that point, and I was like, we're just going to watch this whole fucking movie.
Kill it.
And I did. And I'm so engrossed. Why these movies rate poorly on like Rotten Tomatoes and shit is beyond me, because there is just so much meat on the bones of those fucking movies that I just don't get why they don't like it. There is.
Why?
I don't know. I don't know. And that's why I gave the fifth one a chance, because it also reviewed low. And I was like, well, I love the fuck out of the second and third one. And then I watched the fifth one and I was like, yeah, that one sucks. And
that's actually where my interest really lies, because I'm very interested in like your perspective of the last two, because like, again, never watched them, never gave them a chance. I have also listened to the populace and have been like, I don't think this is for me.
I just want to say a few more good things about the original trilogy, though, before I do start talking about that other one. It does this amazing job of blending it's a serious as fuck movie and plot. People are dying in very, like, crazy ways sometimes, like, dark for kids kind of a movie. But it also finds the way to...
We have to always keep that in mind. It's important to keep in mind. These are technically, by all definition, children's movies.
They're family films. Yeah,
they're family films. And it's like,
they're movies that get better as you age, if you ask me.
This is some Yu-Gi-Oh! Chain to the ground, saw on your leg kind of perspective here. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So that's happening around me as I'm watching it for the first time in probably like 8 or 9 years. I already love these movies, but they blend in comedy in a way that just works so well that it doesn't take you out of it. I love the two. There are multiple groups of just funny and people doing funny things, but there are like two fucking goofball pirates from the first three movies that aren't in the other two, which suck that they're not there. But like, they're great comedic relief anytime they use, like, all the characters are just exactly where they need to be. Nothing goes too much. And I loved, because I had forgotten, dude. I had forgotten that fucking Barbossa weds Will and Elizabeth on that battle on the boat. And as soon as I saw it again, I just remember how much, because you and I watched that in theaters together, the third movie.
Yes,
and how
we did.
Funny we thought that was. And I thought it was even funnier now. I was like, because, you know, they're in a fucking whirlpool with the biggest fucking, it's a huge pirate battle that ends the movies. It's the fucking, you know, Pelennor Fields of the Pirates of the Caribbean trilogy.
Now it's related to Lord of the Rings.
And Barbossa. Everything in my life is really epic. Like, now and Barbossa just fucking, it's so great. Good. It is epic and funny, and it is everything all at once, and I loved it. And
they're fighting, and he's like being serious, and then you like realize as an adult, you're just like, these fucking idiots love each other, and you're all here for it, and you're just having and they're like getting serious about it. Oh, I love that. That scene is so good.
It's
in the midst of absurdity. That scene is so good.
I could not put this movie down, and I don't know. I just.
Like I said, after you texted me, like I usually do, much like I appreciate the original trilogy, much like I appreciate Lord of the Rings trilogy. It's not on the same level. I'm not going to admit that. It is incredible in its own right, though, and it deserves a trilogy rewatch on occasion for that single purpose.
I won't let this long of time go on again. I'll tell you that. And it's funny too, because like I still know everything. Like I haven't, like, it's been a while, but you know, those movies just sit with you. You know what I mean? I knew what was going to happen, but it was still awesome to see.
I think it was been 2019 for me, and which is about 6 years. It's time. As soon as you texted me and you're just like, dude, and I was like, dude, I got to watch these again.
Even, man, just look at every character. They're all just so well done. And put together
I'm such a pirate fanatic in itself too. Like, allow this.
If you're just in a pirate mood, why not watch those first three at least? And you know what? Another thing I love about the third one, especially for the time that I watched it, a lot of things didn't have like a very bitter, like things had an ending. They either ended well or badly. At World's End has this kind of bittersweet ending where Will is the captain of the Dutchman and he has to guide the souls. And that's you know what I mean? It's a happy ending. The good guys win, but like,
would you call that a happy ending? Because the entire thing that they're like describing is this like epic love to ensure that Will Turner and Elizabeth Swann have this like almost again Disney related happy ending. Well, and there's just this irony at the end where it's like yes, but also no.
It's the best state for the world to be in by the end of it. So yes, it is a happy ending, but it's bittersweet because even though the world's celebrating in ways of their own. Like, yes, Will could be in a bad way the captain of the, it could be a lot worse. It's his choosing, because he was gonna die. So they make him.
There was no other.
It was either he dies or he becomes.
But damn, man, that final scene where they're just like, look to the horizon, and you're just like, dude, I'm gonna cry. I'm just gonna cry right now. Like, that's fine. They're out for another 10 years or whatever it is. That is, you're right. It's aggressively bittersweet.
It's especially, oh man, that just was so much better for me now that a movie, like a Disney movie, kind of ended in that kind of way. Jack Sparrow is still pirating, like the world's in a good state. Barbossa took his ship again, in a lot of ways it kind of starts the way it, or ends the way it starts, but it's changed. And like, there's a post-credit scene, right, where like 10 years, because every 10 years he gets to come to see, and it's him meeting his like child, and it's like, okay, so like it's working out, at least. Who knows the state of the world, but it's working out. And
10 years is a long time.
So the thing that caught my attention the most about the fifth one, because I hated the fourth one, I wasn't going back to it. There's a little nod in the third one about the Fountain of the Youth, and they were like, let's make a movie about that. And it's awful. I've only watched it once, but once was all I needed.
Sure.
And you know what? I'll get into why I think it's even worse than it is in a little bit here. But the premise of the fifth, like I read the premise to the fifth, and I was like, this is a story that I'm at least interested in. And the story is of Will's son trying to find a way to break the curse of Davy Jones' of like the ship of the what is Davy Jones' ship? The Flying Dutchman. And he goes on an adventure to do so. And I was like, okay. And I saw that Orlando Bloom was in it. I saw that Keira Knightley had.
I don't think I knew that they were in that. Okay.
They're practically not. Let me just say that. They're practically not. They're in it, but the premise alone, I was like, you know what? I like the idea of like a continuation of this story. Let's see where it goes. And I'm going to say this, it's not good. It's not a good movie. And I think one of its biggest faults is that here's the problem with the way things went with the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. They made 3 epic movies that got more epic as we went on.
Yep.
And then the fourth one came out, and in the fourth and the fifth one, they're very similar in the way that they are like, we're going to do another one. Instead of doing a continuation, it's like the first one again, but with different characters and a different story. Some of your characters are there, but not all of them. And the fourth one's just awful. But there was enough of the same cast for this one that I was like, I'll check it out. And like, it's a 2-hour-long movie. It's 2 hours, 50 minutes. It's not super long. You're an hour in, and I feel like you've gotten enough information that the first movie did in like 30 to 40 minutes. And you're just like, there's a lot to cover in an hour and 15 minutes. And there certainly is. And they don't do a good job with it. And it was just such a letdown of a movie that I'm like, I think the premise of this would have been a lot cooler if you would have done another, like how
trilogy.
At World's End and Dead Man's Chest are kind of a double feature. Do another duo back to back instead of these like, let's try to do one again, or let's try to do something that's like the first one but off the tail. It ruins the end of basically this of the end of the third one. So you just kind of tell yourself, don't count that. Because I'll tell you this, dude, they break the curse. They break the curse. Like, it's very simple. They break the curse. They find this trident that has the ability to like. It's somebody's
And by curse,
trident.
you mean like the curse of having to be like attached to the Davy Jones?
Yes,
or,
yeah. This trident can destroy any curse. Like it has the ability to like take away a sea curse, the force, the magic system in this world that he's bound to. And I'm just like, okay, you can make a not a curmuffin, what's the word I'm looking for? An item that has the ability to do anything in a series. But a MacGuffin, Jesus, a MacGuffin. You can add a MacGuffin, and I'll buy it. But make a really good. If they would have did like a 2-movie story about this idea they had that was rich, like Dead Man's Chest and At World's End, I think this would have been a much better movie. But because I told you by the first hour, you're about 40 minutes into the actual first movie, and you got an hour left to do a lot of shit, and it was not good.
Funny.
It was not.
Because like again, I have the Rotten Tomatoes page. If I've just been reading like, just general comments, it's not that big of a deal. But man, some of these are pretty funny. The audience reviews mostly just keep saying, "Well, at least it's better than the fourth one." I think that's all I keep reading.
And I would agree with that. I guess like I would agree with that, but that's not a good.
No,
thing.
I don't think it's like the thing is it's like 2 stars out of 5. At least it's better than the fourth one. Or the one that says, "Oh, if only the dead men tell no tales, then we might have avoided this 5th Pirates of the Caribbean adventure, which fails to justify its own existence in any way whatsoever." And it's like, oh damn.
It was the 4th Matrix movie. You know, it's just this movie that came out. They were like, let's try to catch something. There's a premise here that I think people might like, but we're not going to do a good job with it. And I think
the question that I have after hearing what you said is this concept of like, why they know they had a winning formula. They succeeded with a winning formula. Why would you not commit to that winning formula again? Why would you not do exactly as you said? At least churn out one more.
Hindsight.
The story, give it its fair due, shake it out all the way through. Don't rush it in fucking whatever I just saw here. 2 minutes and
there are just pieces.
2 minutes and 3 minutes.
There are just pieces in this movie that I don't even know why they're there. Like there is this threat of the East India Trading Company, but you're not really sure why it's a part of the movie. And then they do just kind of like fucking get rid of it. There's a main villain storyline that I'm also just like, they just needed to have bad, spooky, cursed people in this movie that also don't entirely need to be there.
They needed some unworldly features to draw the audience in and make
this
it like...
movie, the premise should be a ripped fucking man, and they made this like skinny to the bone fucking Marilyn Manson looking motherfucker.
Which is a shame because it's Javier Bardem, which I mean, come on now, top tier talent for such.
And pieces are there, like there's things that also happen in that movie that I'm just like, why did it have to happen in this dog shit movie? Like, god damn.
I've never given them the time of day. Like I know how
I would
much
recommend
of a pedestal I put on those top 3, and I don't want to think about them in any other way.
I was on such a high. That's why I watched the 5th one. I was like, man, those first 3. And I didn't even know it was just on. You know what I mean? I didn't plan to watch the Pirates of the Caribbean trilogy. It was just on, and I was fucking in it. And then I watched
We're in cold
one,
season.
Like,
this is the time to do a trill run. I need to do a trill run of all 3. I just watched A New Hope recently. I should have finished the trill. I did not. But now I need to start because I'm so much involved in this.
Dun 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 dun.
Beautiful music.
The music's great.
I'll have that on when I'm playing video games just to get pumped. Like it's such a good soundtrack.
And just try to look for the Star Wars,
right?
The Star Wars like similarities. It was funny. I was, as we were watching it, I was making these jokes about it being like Star Wars to Miranda, and like there'd be lines and things that people would say that I'd twist to be like Star Wars things. Like I said something about Will Turner. I was like, he used to bullseye womp rats on his T-16 back home. But
he used to take out tiny little fish in his dinghy back home.
There was a scene. There was a scene in the 5th one where they were approaching this like cursed ship thing, like giant ship thing, and the guy goes, "That's no ship," and I just go, "It's a space station."
No way they said that.
They said it's no ship, but I said it's a space. But it was like,
but immediately I just want to go, that's no death, that's no moon, that's a space station.
And that's what I like. There are things that make it like Star Wars in subtle ways and big ways. And that's one of those big ones, but usually it's pretty subtle, but it's really well done. You know what I mean? The sword fights or the lightsaber battles. That 5th one. Yeah, if you haven't seen it, don't just pass on it.
I think I'm happy with my own nostalgia of reality of just like knowing what I know about the original 3. I put them on such a high pedestal, regardless of the general populace. They mean a lot in terms of how good they are. I'm not interested in ruining that perspective. Like I'm not. And it's not like you're like, I'm riding a high, I want to go see more. It's like, I think I just not do that.
You could watch the 4th one and see what you think. Because it doesn't really do anything to the lore like the 5th one kind of.
Yeah,
does.
but they don't
it
create
sort of
characters that I care about. They don't create, like, I'm in it for the Will Turner and the Elizabeth Swann and the people that I
in all of them. So he's there.
Like a good Joffrey Rush. I'm all for him too.
Yeah, Barbossa's there, so that's nice. You know, the rest of the midget, they don't have the two funny guys. That's another thing I don't. They try to make new funny guys for the fourth and fifth one. The new funny guys, though, they're fine. They're not as good as the other ones. So it's just like anytime they're on, I'm just like, this would be better if the real funny guys were here, especially when you have the rest of the cast. Yeah. So, and I don't know, that's not their fault. It's just the world that we're in. Like, they didn't need to make either of those movies, but they did. And but the first three, they, like I said at the start of all this, the greatest pirate fictional movies
Pintel and Ragetti. That's what their names are. Pintel and Ragetti are the two goofy ones.
And there's also two goofy fucking like East India Trading Company guys that end up becoming pirates at the end of the third one.
Oh, that's right, because they blend in after the battle's over. They throw on.
They're in the fifth one, like really pirates now, and they're kind of funny. Like that's one thing I'll get. I'm like, wow, they really. At least these guys are here.
They tried. What a weird. How do you even tell the story of this, like Pentel and Ragetti just disappearing? Like, where did they go?
How not important, one? Right? Well, that's what I mean. Like, and like
they just got off at the nearest port, and they're just like, all right, peace.
How funny is it the two characters like them and the two in the East India Trading Company are such minor characters, but we know them so well. They're like Helen from Drake and
They were characters in an old Pirates of the Caribbean game that I own. Like I knew them because they were characters. Yeah, like you could use them. Yeah. So that's funny that they said.
So them not being in the other movies when like people are taking their role, like their caricatures. I'm just like, meh, I can't. I'm sorry. I don't know.
That's fair.
There's a lot of interesting payoffs, a lot of interesting character moments in the original trilogy. Here's another thing. Another character that is kind of Darth Vader-y is what is his name? He's the East India Trading Company guy that in the first one is gonna marry Elizabeth instead. Yes, Beckett. His character arc throughout the three movies, fantastic. But he ends it by sacrificing himself to save Keira Knightley's character and gets killed by Will's dad, and that's a very like Darth Vader dying for Luke sort of situation.
And he's not even like a supernatural villain. He's a true angry villain in terms of like what he has done up to that point. He's a fantastic antagonist, but in
the second one he's kind of a protagonist because he's just like so down on his luck that he has to do what the pirates do, but ultimately he becomes a bad guy at the end.
It's just not as flashy as a dude with like tentacles for a face, which is like why he'll never have that perspective.
The blending. They take pieces of certain characters, because
it's a good story. It's a good damn story.
Of course
you ever watch Black Sails? The Showtime TV show?
I do not.
I heard that's really good too as far as the Pirates series goes, but I don't think it goes much further than the first season. So
yeah,
I don't know. Something that I was interested in watching, but yeah, those first three movies, I'm gonna have to go watch them this weekend. I'll do that when I buy Pokemon cards this weekend.
I've given you some homework. You got to read.
I have homework. I got homework.
And you've got to, you gotta do this.
I got homework. I gotta finish my homework, and then it's gonna be fun homework.
Of course. That's what I love about this podcast. To me, it's fun homework to get ready for. I'm like, well, what thing can I enjoy or not enjoy?
So I can speak at length about. Yeah. Well, next time you have the opportunity to go read some Junji Ito and just stare at the world and be like, I don't get it.
I should at least check out one.
That's fair, man.
Well, I suppose then that's really all I needed to say. I could probably go on about Wheel of Time and Pirates for fucking hours ago, but we do not have that kind of time.
Maybe what we do is, I know you're going to break up your Wheel of Time with your buddy. Maybe what we need to do is we actually need to break up Pirates of the Caribbean in more depth to try and like just go into it again, break it down, damn scene by scene. And maybe I will finally get to see the fourth and fifth because we have to talk about it.
I would like to do that. That sounds like a really fun time, actually.
Sounds like a good time. I'm down for it.
Cool. Well, thank you for being on the show. Thank you for being the guest host tonight.
It's been a pleasure as always.
As always, I'm looking so forward to editing this. It's always fun to listen back to these great conversations. But with that, shitters, that is the show. Tell your friends. Tell everybody you know. Nerd Shit in the Dark. Get on us. Follow. With that, good night. Sleep tight. Don't let the shit bugs bite. We'll see you next time. I'm not really sure how to...